Chapter 22:13. Han Fei didn't feel tired at all. In the past, when Han Fei was in the Pioneer Sea state, he didn't feel tired no matter how hard he fought. However, when he killed more than 200 heaven-opening state tormented spirits, he felt that the heaven-opening state tormented spirits were really hard to deal with. These creatures couldn't be killed easily. In fact, thanks to the Emperor Sparrow's crazy absorption of their broken ferocious spirits, many of these spirits could have been revived. They might have been able to reform their bones and continue to fight Han Fei. For the first time, Han Fei knew the limit of his current combat power. Although he could continue to reverse time, his mental exhaustion was the real reason why he couldn't move. Because there were too many soul attacks in this batch of heaven-opening state creatures. If he wanted to block these soul attacks, he would consume an astronomical amount of energy. In addition, in this battle, Han Fei found that reversing time couldn't actually reverse the mental exhaustion. He didn't notice this before because his soul was strong enough and he didn't reverse time enough, so he didn't feel how tired he was mentally. But this time, he experienced it. Heavenly Awakening Divine Technique. In the bombardment of countless heaven-opening state-tormented spirits, a Heavenly Awakening Divine Technique descended. Han Fei didn't cast it to heal his physical wounds, but to relieve the mental pressure. At this moment, the Emperor Sparrow shouted, "Fuse!" Han Fei's heart trembled and he immediately shouted, "Fuse!" The color of the world changed. With Han Fei as the center, the sky was shrouded by blood clouds. Black mist was escaping from Han Fei's body. Han Fei's pupils turned scarlet, and behind him, a pair of black wings that were more than 10 meters long spread out. Countless silver lines and patterns appeared on his body, as if he had been branded with divine patterns. At that moment, Han Fei felt that his mental strength was replenished, so strong that he felt he could fight another 200 tormented spirits. Of course, Han Fei couldn't be so weak in the fusion with the Emperor Sparrow. The Emperor Sparrow wasn't a weak bird, which could be seen from its inherited technique. For example, the Eye of Calamity, the Heart Demon Summoning, the innate fiendish battle physique, the Eye of Cholera. After the Sea Expansion Realm, the Emperor Sparrow had also learned the malevolent eating divine art. Looking at these legacy techniques, apart from the innate fiendish battle physique, the others did not look like proper technique. In fact, the moment Han Fei fused with the King Sparrow, Han Fei felt that the murderous aura around him seemed to be an endless source of energy. He felt like he could devour this energy at any time to fight. Han Fei subconsciously took a breath, only to feel that his body was like a vortex that absorbed the murderous aura. That feeling was actually a little sweet, as if there was a sweet mist in the air. Before Han Fei could study it, a lot of attacks arrived and blew Han Fei away. Han Fei suddenly felt an inexplicable anger in his heart. He thought to himself, "How dare a mere tormented soul like you mess with me?" When Han Fei first had this idea, he was a little surprised, but when he remembered that he had fused with the Emperor Sparrow, he was no longer surprised. However, his fusion with the Emperor Sparrow was extremely unfamiliar. Just as he was subconsciously enraged, his eyes glowed red and he saw the 3 heaven-opening realm-tormented souls that were closest to him suddenly freeze in place. Then, they suddenly started to attack their companions. The Emperor Sparrow said, "This is the Eye of Chaos. With your current strength, you can probably use the Eye of Chaos on 8 to 10 tormented souls of this level. I'm afraid it won't work if there are more." Hearing that, Han Fei immediately looked around and activated the Eye of Chaos. He saw that 5 more heaven-opening state-tormented souls were attacked and began to attack their companions. When it came to the 9th tormented soul, the Flood Dragon tormented soul shook its head and broke free from the Eye of Chaos. Also, Han Fei felt that his eyes were a little painful. Han Fei said, "No. I've only killed 8 of them. I'm afraid there are still 800 of them here. Can't your Eye of Disaster summon heavenly demons?" However, the Emperor Sparrow said, The Eye of Disaster can't be used indiscriminately. Although it can summon heavenly demons, it can often cause other accidents. The Eye of Disaster means the arrival of disasters. It's fine to use it in places where there isn't much danger, because in relatively safe places, no matter how big the disasters are, they can't be called disasters. But here, the weakest combat power is the heaven-opening state. If I release disasters here, I'm afraid I'll summon an Emperor-level tormented soul. Han Fei was horrified. Are you King kidding me? An Emperor-level tormented soul with the Eye of Disaster can summon not only heavenly demons but also emperors? Also, as its master, you don't even know the attack power of this thing? The Emperor Sparrow said, It's not to summon emperors, but to create an unexpected disaster in a certain place. It's called a disaster if it can destroy a certain place. There are all heaven-opening state tormented souls here. What level of power do you need to destroy them? Han Fei was dumbfounded. As it turned out, the Eye of Disaster wasn't an ordinary technique at all. It was a destructive technique that could poison a place. Han Fei was horrified. The Emperor Sparrow had used the Eye of Disaster many times before. Because they were fused, the Emperor Sparrow knew what Han Fei was thinking. He said, There's an essential difference between what I use and what you use. I used to control disasters, so I can control the level of the disaster's power. Han Fei said, Then let's fight first. When Han Fei was about to attack, the Emperor Sparrow said, You should be able to control the evil-eating divine technique now. Use it together with the innate ferocious battle body. Han Fei was about to use the innate ferocious battle body, but the Emperor Sparrow reminded him to use the evil-eating divine technique at the same time. When the two techniques were imprinted in his mind, Han Fei was surrounded by darkness. Han Fei's body was changing. He turned into a monster more than 100 meters tall, shrouded in darkness. At the same time, Han Fei felt an explosive power. This kind of power improved Han Fei's physique by about 2 to 3 times. It had to be noted that Han Fei couldn't hold on for a long time with his Dao. So, even if his Dao could provide him with 5 times the super combat ability, it wouldn't last long. Although the power brought by the innate ferocious battle body wasn't that strong, Han Fei felt that he could use this technique as long as there was malevolent energy. Han Fei was about to punch, but his body moved. Although he didn't use his ultimate speed, his instantaneous speed was not far from it. Shocked by the speed, Han Fei wanted to punch, but he subconsciously changed his hand into a claw. Chilla crack, 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 countless bones of a ferocious beast that looked like an elephant were torn apart by Han Fei's claw, and the elephant was instantly enshrouded in thick black fog. The evil spirit body in the black fog tried to struggle, but its mind was controlled by the black fog. Han Fei was a little surprised. Is this the ominous Qi? The Emperor Sparrow said, You guessed right. This is the ominous Qi. However, it's my own ominous Qi, not those in the chaotic wasteland. Han Fei asked, Is there a difference? The Emperor Sparrow said, The difference is that this ominous Qi carries the darkness of my destiny. It can demonize people's minds. Try to control this evil spirit with the ominous Qi. Han Fei was shocked. Could it be done like that? The overwhelming dark mist spread in all directions. Some of the tormented spirits didn't care, and even tried to attack Han Fei. Some attacked Han Fei while resisting the dark fog. The difference was that the evil spirit on those who didn't resist was gradually swallowed by the dark fog, and black flames replaced the evil spirit in their eyes. Han Fei saw the evil spirit being swallowed by the ominous Qi one after another. Their evil spirit was absorbed into his body and turned into his power, and their skeletal bodies became his puppets. Han Fei immediately used the ominous Qi without any scruples. It was so cool that he didn't have to fight personally. It was like the difference between a mage and a warrior. What he was doing now was completely remote attacks and Taoist technique. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last long. When Han Fei controlled the 30-second evil spirit, the ominous chi on him became fainter and fainter until it was almost non-existent. The Emperor Sparrow said, "After all, I haven't reached the heaven-opening realm yet. I can only produce so much ominous chi." Han Fei looked at the countless remaining evil spirits. What could he do? Keep fighting. Indeed, with the help of the Emperor Sparrow, his fighting time and methods had been greatly improved. However, as the Emperor Sparrow said, it was only at the peak of the sea expansion realm. It was already shocking enough that it could control dozens of heaven-opening realm evil spirit. Together with the Eye of Chaos, the Emperor Sparrow alone had more than 100 evil spirits. Han Fei fought for a while with the heavenly ferocious battle body and the evil-eating divine technique. After killing hundreds of heaven-opening realm evil spirits, his mental state was not good again. Chapter 22:14. Although Han Fei couldn't fight anymore, he still didn't think this place was as difficult as a desperate situation. Although it wasn't easy to fight, Han Fei felt that there were many ways to survive. In Han Fei's perception, there were still more than 300 heaven-opening realm-tormented spirits within his range of perception, and this was the result of him fighting and running at the same time. Otherwise, if he let these tormented spirits besiege him, their number might be double or even triple. The tormented souls that Han Fei killed were actually not very strong, but no matter how weak they were still in the heaven-opening realm. The tormented souls would go all out when they attacked. It was already a miracle that Han Fei could kill a few hundred of them. Anyway, Xingyu couldn't figure out how Han Fei could survive the siege of so many tormented spirits. Even if it was him, it would be impossible for him to break through the origin ground of a small world by himself. If there were enough ants, they could kill an elephant. But the tormented spirits were not ants, and Han Fei was not an elephant. Han Fei asked, "Can I kill them?" The Emperor Sparrow said, "You'd better run. Even if I open the sky now, I can't stop them." Han Fei thought, "You're the Emperor Sparrow." The Emperor Sparrow said, "I'm the Emperor Sparrow, but I'm not invincible. If you don't run, you'll also die. With such a number, all the experts below the venerable Emperor level in the entire chaotic wasteland will die." "Fine. If you had said that earlier, I would have run. I thought you could kill 700 or 800 of them." The Emperor Sparrow, when Han Fei was sure that he couldn't fight anymore, he turned off the fusion state with the Emperor Sparrow. Then he fused with Little Black and Little White. When the Yin-Yang Divine Eyes appeared, Little Black and Little White's spiritual power was replenished, and Han Fei began to run. Han Fei didn't know how many tormented spirits there were in this place. However, if he were to forcefully continue fighting, once his mental strength was completely exhausted, he might even be worn down to death. This was not running, but a strategic retreat. What he needed now was time for him to quickly recover his spiritual power. The Divine Soul was the power of the Divine Soul, and the spiritual power was the time that the Divine Soul could maintain the state of battle. Han Fei's origin C could accelerate time, but in this space, he had already found that the origin C could only mobilize power, but couldn't open a path to the origin C unless he cut it open by force. He did not know if it was because he and the sea realm had crossed two small worlds in a row. Anyway, he couldn't count on the source sea, so the only thing he could do was to run away. While escaping, the two heavenly veins in Han Fei's body began to be activated, and the void fishing art was also activated. The advantage of being a heavenly meridian was that his recovery speed was much faster. However, this recovery speed was mainly the replenishment of spiritual energy and injuries, physical fatigue, energy transfer, and so on. Although the recovery speed of mental strength was also fast, it was still relatively slow. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. While escaping, Han Fei cast the Gemini Divine Technique. When all the tormented souls chased after the body of white mist, the body of black mist slowly attached to a broken skeleton crab and began to rest. Although only half of Han Fei's body was resting, it was still a rest. He could replenish as much as he could. However, he didn't dare to be careless, because the result of the Nine-Palace ruler of Providence's calculation was a desperate situation. But the Nine-Palace ruler of Providence could calculate every day. If the result was a desperate situation today, it meant that there would be a big disaster today. For now, these tormented souls were not a desperate situation. This also meant that there were either more powerful tormented souls here, or there were other threats here. The tormented souls chased furiously for about an hour. Han Fei, who had recovered a little bit, instantly turned into a bone and embedded it on the body of a tormented soul. This was a countermeasure that he had already thought of. If he disguised himself as a part of the tormented soul, he wouldn't be discovered, right? His disguise was so good that even a venerable emperor couldn't discover him. In fact, it was exactly as Han Fei thought. Because his time grafting was very good, and most of the tormented souls didn't pay attention to the rear after chasing the target, Han Fei succeeded. After these tormented souls lost their target, they began to disintegrate one after another after about half an hour of rage. Crack, crack, crack. As time went on, the heaven-opening realm tormented soul directly collapsed into countless broken bones, scattering on the ground. At this moment, Han Fei seemed to be in a completely ethereal state, as if he had slept for half an hour. Unfortunately, the time was too short for him to perform the time technique, so it was impossible for him to recover quickly. According to Han Fei's estimation, it would take him at least 2 days to restore his mental strength to a perfect state. However, he couldn't just wait. At this moment, these tormented souls turned into broken bones and scattered on the ground. Han Fei had planned to rest for a while. Even if he couldn't recover to the perfect state, he wanted to recover at least 30% of his strength. The Emperor's sparrow had returned to his soul sea, so it had more space to rest than him. In this way, even if something happened later, it wouldn't be defenseless. However, Han Fei's imagination was too optimistic. When the bones scattered, Han Fei naturally fell to the ground. At first, he didn't notice it. But after lying there for dozens of seconds, he was shocked to find that because the tormented soul body was not there, the ground was absorbing his vitality. At the same time, a murderous aura was slowly gathering towards him, as if it was going to corrode him. When he was attached to the body of the tormented souls before, maybe because the tormented souls had formed a spirit body, he was temporarily free from the infection of the murderous aura in this space. But now, the murderous aura actually took the initiative to find him. Han Fei immediately realized that he wasn't a tormented soul here, but an alien in this space. This space didn't want to assimilate him, but was assimilating him indiscriminately. Therefore, when his vitality was drained and the murderous aura began to attach to him, Han Fei immediately felt that the bones around him began to move. Bam! Many bones were gathering, and a giant octopus-like tormented soul was slowly piecing together. At this moment, the tormented souls hadn't completely moved yet. However, they only saw an octopus swatting down from the sky. They simply felt that there was something wrong with the space where Han Fei was. Shoot! The bone on the ground hummed and jumped up, turning back into Han Fei's appearance. At this time, Han Fei hadn't even recovered 10% of his strength, and he was already seen through by the damn rules of this world. However, this was only Han Fei's first plan. He hoped that he could avoid being recognized by the tormented souls and get a space to rest. But now, this plan obviously didn't work. He shouted, "Old Yuan, wake up!" Because he had been undercover in the scavenger city, the old turtle had been in a state of hibernation for a long time. At this moment, Han Fei's loud voice directly woke him up. The old turtle, who had just been awakened, suddenly said, "What's wrong? Are we going to the Divine Demon Sea?" Han Fei said, "T. I'm being chased by the tormented souls now. Take over my body. No matter where you run, just run as fast as you can. I need to rest." tormented souls. Hiss. Shoot. After being with Han Fei for a long time, the old turtle had also picked up the habit of swearing. Now, looking at the dense hundreds of tormented souls, the old turtle felt terrible. So many tormented souls? And all of them are in the heaven-opening state. Oh my God, did you go to some primeval land? Han Fei thought that according to the old turtle's personality, he shouldn't have been to such a place. After all, the old turtle was only in the heaven-opening state. However, the result was different. The old turtle had actually guessed the gist of it. Unfortunately, Han Fei didn't have time to chat with old Yuan now. He said, "I'm going to rest for a while. Call me when you can't take it anymore." Hey! Hey hey! Han Fei's body fell instinctively, and the old turtle saw that Han Fei had fallen asleep. At that moment, his entire tortoise felt unwell. "You trust me too much. What makes you think I can escape from the hands of so many heaven-opening experts?" Unfortunately, at this time, the old turtle also knew that Han Fei's spiritual power must be extremely weak. Otherwise, he wouldn't have woken him up. In this situation, what could the old turtle do? Han Fei slept for about 6 hours. During these 6 hours, he felt as if he had slept for 3 centuries. He felt extremely exhausted. Han Fei! Han Fei! Wake up! In his sleep, Han Fei was woken up. The feeling of drowsiness made him really reluctant to wake up. But Han Fei realized that he was running for his life now, so he had to wake up. However, as soon as he woke up, he felt a splitting headache. Obviously, he didn't have enough time to rest. This state lasted for more than 10 minutes before it slowly disappeared. Han Fei sensed that his mental state had recovered by less than 30%, but it was still not enough. But when Han Fei looked at the current situation, he only saw that his body was covered with bruises and soreness all over his body, and his heart was quickly overwhelmed. The old turtle said, "No, I can't. I'm just a wisp of a soul. It's already my limit to run for so long. This time, I'm really going to fall into a deep sleep." Han Fei was helpless. Indeed, the old turtle was just a wisp of a soul. It was already difficult for him to persist for 6 hours. At this moment, Han Fei, whose mental state had improved a lot, didn't continue to fight. He first cast a heavenly awakening divine technique on himself and then shouted in a low voice, "Fuse." After Little Black and Little White fused, Han Fei said to Little Black as before, "Son, control my body and run away quickly. Don't fight with these creatures. Just run wherever you want. Just run as long as you can." Since the fusion of Little Black and Little White, Little Black had been able to control his body, so Han Fei handed over his body to Little Black. This was the second step. However, Han Fei couldn't wait until Little Black was exhausted before handing over his body to the Emperor Sparrow. In case of a great danger, he was still waiting for it to attack. In fact, if Little Black and Little White controlled his body, Han Fei didn't even know if they could persist for 6 hours. Because Little Black and Little White were not at the heaven-opening realm. They were only at the Pioneer Sea realm and not at the peak. Even if they controlled their bodies, they couldn't fully exert the power of their bodies. The only advantage was that after fusing with Little Black and Little White, they had the yin-yang divine eyes, which made them extremely good at escaping. This was the fundamental reason why Han Fei handed over his body to Little Black. As for Han Fei himself, it seemed that he had to continue to devour ownerless souls. Although devouring too many ownerless souls would make his soul and power extremely unbalanced, this was a critical moment. If he wanted to quickly replenish his spiritual power, he had to do this. Chapter 22:15. After 300 years of cultivation, Han Fei actually understood one thing very well, that was, the power of the soul and the power of the body were becoming more and more balanced, which meant that his overall strength would become stronger and stronger. And if the gap between the two was too big, it would affect his overall combat power. However, Han Fei's current combat power couldn't be any worse, so at this moment, he chose to devour the ownerless souls without hesitation. Although he couldn't enter the Origin Sea, he could still use the energy in the Origin Sea. 2 hours later, after assimilating 200,000 ownerless souls, Han Fei felt that his mental state had recovered to at least 50%, close to 60%. Another 2 hours later, after Han Fei continued to devour 200,000 ownerless souls, he felt that his soul had recovered to more than 70%. Although he knew the price of this crazy devouring would take a long time to digest, Han Fei couldn't do anything about it. However, just as Han Fei was about to continue devouring ownerless souls, Little Black suddenly transmitted his consciousness. "Dad, I can't hold on any longer." Huh! Han Fei immediately perked up. It had only been a little more than 4 hours, and Little Black couldn't hold on anymore. But then again, he didn't expect Little Black and Little White to carry hundreds of heaven-opening realm gods for long. After all, these heaven-opening realm creatures couldn't just chase after you. They could attack you, and it was impossible to defend against soul attack. It was already not bad that Little Black and Little White could resist until now. At this moment, Han Fei's mental state had recovered to about 80%. Even if he fought again, he could use time reversal to kill at least 100 or more tormented souls. However, killing more than 100 tormented souls was meaningless to Han Fei. Unless he could kill all the tormented souls here, he would eventually be besieged by them. At that time, once his mental state reached its lowest value, he wouldn't be able to fight anymore. No. It's meaningless to continue fighting with the tormented souls. It seems that I can only go out first. Han Fei's logic was still clear. This time, he could kill 300 or 400 tormented souls, so the next time he came here, he would naturally be able to kill as many. In any case, the exploration of Land of Revival number 3 would last for 2 years. He had plenty of time, so there was no need to rush. Although he had come for the world origin, the 9 Palaces' fate ruler had divined a desperate situation divination. If he couldn't collect the world origin in his peak condition, it would be troublesome if he ended up in a desperate situation. It was better to return first and avoid this desperate situation. So, Han Fei cast out the fishing hook and fished out the navigational multitude from time. When it came to fishing with the navigator, Han Fei was very accurate because he used the navigator too often and the navigator had been with him for a long time. Grabbing the navigator, Han Fei glanced at the heaven-opening stage tormented souls and sneered. With a thought, as the navigator spun, Han Fei sped up and turned into a beam of light. Han Fei ran in the direction pointed by the navigational multitude for about 4 hours, which was actually a kind of recovery for his mental strength. However, because he was running too fast, he didn't recover much. He had recovered less than half of his mental strength, so he had recovered about 80%. 2 hours later, when Han Fei broke into an unusually hot place, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He suddenly found that the heaven-opening stage tormented souls chasing him had actually stopped at this moment. Huh! Seeing this, Han Fei immediately stopped. He let the navigational multitude point to the exit of this place. However, it seemed that the situation was obviously not right. How could a place that could stop all the tormented souls from chasing him be an ordinary place? Thinking of the desperate situation divination in the 9 Palaces' fate ruler, Han Fei couldn't help but be alert. Could it be that this desperate situation divination actually predicted that he would give up the world origin and leave this place? Han Fei immediately retreated to the edge and fished out the navigational multitude again. However, this time, Han Fei wanted to point to the place where the world origin was located. However, after seeing the direction of the navigational multitude, Han Fei's pupils immediately constricted. Han Fei couldn't help but gasp, because the navigational multitude pointed out that the direction of the exit and the direction of the world origin were exactly the same. A desperate situation divination? Han Fei immediately summoned the Emperor Sparrow, who asked as soon as it came out, "What's the problem?" The Emperor Sparrow hadn't recovered yet, so it knew that Han Fei was in a critical situation and wouldn't summon it unless it was absolutely necessary. Once Han Fei summoned it, it meant that there was a big problem. After the Emperor Sparrow appeared, it immediately sensed something wrong. "Where is this?" Han Fei said. "The direction of the exit, but in this area, all the tormented souls have stopped chasing. I guess there's a great danger here." The Emperor Sparrow said, "There's no need to guess. There must be something here. The intensity of the evil chi here is almost twice as high as before. Also, with such a scorching power here, the evil chi here may have completely cultivated an evil body. It may have achieved the same effect as the evil-eating divine technique." Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. The evil chi here should be very strong. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to make so many tormented souls retreat and not dare to advance rashly. The evil-eating divine technique could devour evil chi and continue fighting. If the evil chi here was also like this, how strong would it be? However, the exit and the origin of the world were both here. If he wanted to go out, he would have to face this evil chi. However, Han Fei didn't advance rashly. Since the signs of the evil chi hadn't appeared yet, he might as well continue to recover his spiritual power. Therefore, Han Fei sat cross-legged at the edge of this place and began to recuperate. At the same time, Han Fei's mind raced. After almost a day, he might be able to fish for Xingyu again. However, he had met Xingyu too few times. They had only met once when he entered the number 3 revival land. Without much contact, it would be difficult for him to fish for Xingyu. Han Fei didn't regard Xingyu as a trump card. He was thinking about his own means. He had the Phoenix Feather Wild Saber, the Green Thunder Wine Gourd, and the Infinity Mirror, all 3 of which were divine weapons. The Wind and Rain Wild Saber was just a saber. It could enhance his combat power, but its effect wasn't abnormal. The Green Thunder Wine Gourd was more of an auxiliary divine weapon. It was good at brewing wine, good at fighting, and strong in defense. Unfortunately, it didn't improve his strength much. It was not as good as the Wind and Rain Wild Saber. Although the Infinity Mirror could absorb experts of the same realm, he knew nothing about the evil chi here. Therefore, he didn't know whether the Infinity Mirror could play a role or not. Besides, the Infinity Mirror had been damaged before. Even if he let the Demon Purification Pot repair it, it was just a replica after all. If it could be damaged by a heaven-opening realm expert, then if the evil chi was much stronger than an ordinary heaven-opening realm expert, the Infinity Mirror might not be able to suppress it. The Infinity Water might be able to kill an Emperor realm expert, but against a evil chi, it was impossible. Fortunately, he had prepared more immortal evil chi. With his current strength, it shouldn't be weak if he used it. Of course, there were still some trump cards. If he really used them, it wouldn't be surprising. The most exaggerated was his Void Mark, but the Void Mark could only be used 3 times in total. In terms of the current predicament, it shouldn't be a big deal in the entire East Sea Divine Continent. The Sea of Gods and Demons, the boundless mining area, which one of them was simple. Even though the Land of Despair was dangerous, it was best not to use his final trump card if he could avoid it. While Han Fei was thinking, he saw those evil spirits actually began to retreat. In an instant, Han Fei opened his eyes. It had only been less than 100 seconds, and the danger was already coming? Suddenly, Han Fei's figure flashed, and the place where he was just standing collapsed. 2 long knives slashed behind him. Han Fei couldn't go out. If he went out, he would also face the pursuit of the infinite evil spirit. No matter how long he persisted, there would come a time when he couldn't hold on anymore. Besides, he didn't know the evil chi in this area. He didn't know if it would leave this area and attack him. If it could leave, then he couldn't go out and waste his combat power on some evil spirit. When Han Fei took a closer look, He saw two evil spirits in human form appearing where he was just now. These two people were burning with evil chi flames, holding long knives like flaming skeletons. If they weren't wrapped in evil chi, Han Fei would think they belonged to the Undying. No information appeared in Han Fei's eyes, so he couldn't see the information of these two people. Swish, swish. Han Fei took out the phoenix feather wild knife backhandedly and slashed with the draw technique, but it was directly broken by the knife radiance of the two people at the same time. Good Lord, they are not ordinary evil spirits. They are very strong. The Emperor Sparrow said, "Fuse with me. I can suppress their evil chi." Of course, Han Fei also understood this. The evil spirit food divine technique and the innate evil battle body could absorb the evil chi of the opponent. In a battle, it might be able to reduce the opponent's strength by 10 to 20%. However, Han Fei looked into the depths of this place. If he fused with the Emperor Sparrow, his strength would be greatly reduced. He thought that the Emperor Sparrow might be of great use later. Han Fei immediately said, "No, you continue to rest. Even if these two people have turned into stars, I can still kill them." Han Fei wasn't joking. The problem was whether he was willing to use his full strength, not whether he could kill them or not. Han Fei made up his mind to save the power of the Emperor Sparrow for last. He took a step forward, grasped a piece of time, and grabbed a crack in the void with his right hand. He operated the Great Tao and attacked with all his strength. Chapter 22:16. Han Fei was good at fighting and even better at bursting out. If he could kill his opponent directly, he wouldn't waste his time until the end unless there were special circumstances. But it was different this time. Fighting with brute force was the best way to save mental energy, so Han Fei wasn't in a hurry. It didn't matter if he had to fight for an hour as long as he could kill these two tormented spirits. Of course, he still tried to see if there were any great techniques that could suppress these human-shaped tormented spirit. When he took out the Great Tao of Time and the Great Tao of Space to fight, Han Fei clearly found that the Great Tao of Time didn't work on these tormented spirits. Perhaps these things were originally a special kind of spirit body. Their bones wouldn't show any signs of decay because of time. And the Great Tao of Space, although useful, wasn't powerful enough. The Great Tao of Space was better at fighting cleverly. It mostly used the power of the void to cut the enemy or seal the enemy in a certain space. However, the human-shaped tormented spirit directly shattered his Great Tao of Space with a long saber filled with murderous intent. After a round of confrontation, no one gained the upper hand. Han Fei used the Great Tao of Tianqi and the Great Tao of Gravity. Then he found that these two Great Tao could barely suppress the opponent, but the opponent's theoretical realm was obviously higher than his. Therefore, neither of these two paths worked. The Great Tao of Tianqi could indeed purify the opponent, but it depended on the opponent's level. Even if the opponent was in the same realm, it would waste a lot of vitality to purify the evil with the Great Tao of Tianqi, so it wasn't worth it. Therefore, Han Fei found that in the end, the invincible Tao was still the best. When the invincible Tao was added to his body, the fist radiance carried the power of destruction and a trace of power that others couldn't resist at all. Dum, 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 clang, clang, clang. The two human-shaped tormented spirits fought with Han Fei for 100 minutes, trying to suppress Han Fei with their murderous intent. But Han Fei wasn't afraid. He swallowed the murderous intent with his desolate ancient war body. Because he didn't use the Great Tao, Han Fei was actually weaker than the two of them. Therefore, from the beginning of the battle until now, it could only be said that the two sides were evenly matched. Because Han Fei had too many great techniques. And the tormented spirits were just tormented spirits, after all. Even if they had consciousness, they couldn't control so many great techniques and techniques like real living people. So, Han Fei really struggled with the two for about half an hour. He wanted to fight slowly, but he also wanted to use the time of battle to recover his spirit. Unfortunately, just as Han Fei was immersed in his battle, the Emperor Sparrow said, If you continue fighting like this, you won't be able to kill these two tormented souls even after 3 days and 3 nights. I have to act quickly. I can feel the negative energy in this void. Moreover, the baleful aura here is getting denser and denser. These two are definitely not the real danger. There are even stronger ones behind. Han Fei was shocked. This is not strong? Even among the hundreds of lords in Scavenger City, Han Fei was definitely ranked in the top 50, to be able to tie with him in his normal state. Moreover, these two humanoid tormented souls could actually suppress him, which meant that their ranks were probably higher. But even so, were they just small fries? Roar, buzz, Han Fei secretly activated the Great Tao, and his aura soared crazily. Bang, a beam of dazzling golden light burst out, and one of the humanoid tormented souls was blown up on the spot. Under the operation of the Great Tao, Han Fei's combat strength was increased by 5 times. Even the golden jade body couldn't bear it. In a real battle, he could definitely fight with Xingyu. How could a mere tormented soul withstand it? The tormented soul that Han Fei had defeated with all his strength was still in the air. Before its skeleton was blown away, a strong baleful aura appeared in the air, trying to connect the skeleton tightly like silk threads. Han Fei activated the invincible fist mark. The soul destruction power in the invincible Taoist aura forcibly wiped out part of the baleful aura and prevented the humanoid tormented soul from reassembling. Let me fight, let me fight, let me fight! Han Fei went up and punched hundreds of times. Even so, the invincible Taoist aura couldn't completely wipe out the baleful aura bursting out of the humanoid tormented soul. It was the Emperor Sparrow who swallowed the tormented soul's spiritual body that took care of the tormented soul. On the other side, there was another tormented soul that was attacking Han Fei fiercely. While Han Fei was attacking, he was hit 17 or 18 times, but the tormented soul didn't move at all. Maybe because he knew the danger was coming faster, Han Fei immediately sped up and applied the Great Tao of Time to himself. Almost in an instant, the golden fist mark turned into golden light. Dum, dum, dum. While Han Fei was attacking, the Emperor Sparrow was swallowing crazily. God knew how much baleful aura he had swallowed. The battle could have lasted 3 days and 3 nights, but because of the words of the Emperor Sparrow, it was finished in 10 seconds. Clap, clap, clap. He heard the sound of clapping. Then, someone said lightly, "The road of invincible. You're the only human who has come in all these years, and the only one who has taken the road of invincible." Who is it? Han Fei was shocked. He was about to take a break and recover to his best state so that he could deal with the great danger later. However, a person had appeared so quietly and was so close to him, but he didn't notice it at all. That was too terrifying. Seeing this, Han Fei immediately enveloped the void mark with his divine soul, ready to launch it at any time. In the depths of the abyss with intense baleful aura, a human man was walking towards him slowly. Han Fei was sure that he was a human. His body wasn't completely intact. This man was skinny and had lost a lot of skin on his face. His flesh and blood were dry, but the red baleful aura was condensed into liquid. The Emperor Sparrow reminded him, the baleful aura can turn into blood and can't be destroyed. This man is extremely powerful. He has cultivated the evil blood body and may be on the verge of the Tao-proving realm. Do you have any methods to fight against him? Han Fei was shocked. There was only one method, which was to call him senior brother. If he was on the verge of the Tao-proving realm, wouldn't he be a figure at Zhao Hongguang's level? Although Han Fei's combat ability wasn't weak, he was only as strong as one of the top 10 lords in his best state. He might not be ranked high, but he definitely couldn't be in the top 5. Now, he couldn't fight against someone at Zhao Hongguang's level at all. Han Fei narrowed his eyes and asked, "Are you a human?" The man's hideous face put on a smile with difficulty, because his skin and flesh were all dry. How could he smile? He said, "Yes, I'm a human. So, I'm very glad that you're here." Han Fei was shocked. There seemed to be only two possibilities for a human being to appear here. One was that someone came to explore this world after it was destroyed and died in it. This man was obviously not a tormented spirit, but had survived until now after he swallowed infinite baleful aura. The other possibility was that this man had fought here when this world was destroyed. He might be one of the first people to come to this world and theoretically died in it. But how long would that take? Seeing that Han Fei didn't say anything, the man said, "There's no need to guess. I'm from this world. The enemy destroyed this world and plundered the origin of this world. I found a glimmer of vitality in the core of this world. When I woke up, there was only boundless baleful aura left in this world. There was no living creature. Is it sad?" Han Fei suddenly opened his eyes. "Are you from this world?" The man asked. "Was it an accident?" Han Fei asked, "Was this world originally ruled by humans?" The man's voice was slightly hoarse. "Of course. There used to be billions of humans here. Unfortunately, they were all burned in the end." Han Fei didn't know whether he should believe this man or not. He said, "It was too long ago. Humans are declining in the outside world. Since you're a former human expert, why didn't you come out of seclusion after you recovered?" "Come out of seclusion?" The man said, "I woke up because of the recovery of the origin of this world. Without the origin of this world, do you think I'm still a human? Do you think I can leave at this moment?" However, Han Fei heard the Emperor Sparrow's voice in his heart. "It's fake. The baleful aura has turned into blood. No matter how much the origin of life injects into him, he can't change the fact that he has become a blood demon." This man couldn't know the telepathic communication between Han Fei and the Emperor Sparrow, because it wasn't a voice transmission. Han Fei didn't know whether this man really didn't know the Emperor Sparrow or he was just pretending. If he really didn't know the Emperor Sparrow, this man was probably a native of this world, and not from the ocean realm. If it was fake, this man had been lying to him from the beginning. He must have an ulterior motive. The Emperor Sparrow was known as an ominous creature. He must know more about the dark things. Therefore, Han Fei believed that whether this man was a native or not, he must have an ulterior motive. So Han Fei said, "Senior, since you still need to recover with the origin of this world, I won't disturb you anymore." "Hehe, are you leaving in such a hurry?" Han Fei said, "Senior, you're not going out, and I can't take the origin of this world. Are you going to keep me here, Senior?" The man said, "I've been observing you for a long time. Although you're still weak, you have a lot of body, soul, combat ability, techniques, and treasures. Someone like you must be a heavenly talent of the human race, right?" Even when the human race was at its peak, it was extremely difficult for someone to reach your level even after 10,000 years. Han Fei said, "You flatter me, Senior." The man chuckled in a low voice. "Boy, I can spare your life. However, let's exchange our souls. What do you think?" Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. Soul exchange, as the name suggested, meant exchanging his evil blood body with his own body. Although this man said that he was a human, he didn't care about exposing his intentions. He said, "Although you are not weak, even if you go all out, it's still not enough. You haven't turned into a star yet, have you? You can't stop me. For the sake that we are of the same race, instead of annihilating your soul, why don't we exchange our souls? Your mission will eventually become my mission. I will complete them one by one. You don't have to worry about anything." Han Fei was silent for a long time. It seemed that he wouldn't lose if he fought with his life. So Han Fei said, "It's impossible to exchange our souls. Your realm may be higher, but how do you know if you don't fight?" Chapter 22:17. The fact that this ancient human was looking down on him meant that he was looking down on his battle prowess. Han Fei didn't need him to think much of his combat power. Anyway, it was impossible for him to exchange souls. Since the other party wanted his body, he wouldn't completely destroy it. So, he could fight without restraint. Even if he couldn't beat him, Han Fei was waiting for the moment when he couldn't beat him. The last thing he was afraid of in this life was being possessed. The level of the demon purification pot had exceeded the scope of the sea realm. It was the goal of the gods. It would be a joke if it couldn't even capture the soul of an ancient human. The man was not afraid that Han Fei would run because he had seen through Han Fei's limit. If he ran, he would die. There was still a glimmer of hope, so he wouldn't run. And Han Fei was very experienced in self-cultivation as an actor. From the moment this ancient human wanted to exchange souls with him, he had already started acting. At this moment, Han Fei looked back with determination in his eyes. He seemed to be thinking that he would definitely die if he went back, but the way out was just ahead. It's over. Han Fei suddenly roared and activated his aspect battle body. This was what he had used before. After activating the aspect world, his combat power could increase by 30%. And the Phoenix Feather Wild Knife, a divine weapon, he had also used. Fortunately, he didn't expose the Infinity Mirror and the Green Thunder Wine Gourd. Otherwise, this person wouldn't have underestimated him so much. This time, Han Fei completely released his combat power. He burned his essence blood and longevity, and used the Phoenix Feather Wild Knife to perform the Annihilation Knife technique. The drawing technique was different from the drawing technique. The drawing technique could turn everything into knives, while the drawing technique focused on the limit of knife. In its ultimate state, the void would be annihilated, and even the body would be annihilated, the soul would be annihilated, and the knife would be annihilated. Han Fei didn't plan to use his full strength, because even now, he already felt extremely strong. Besides, knowing that this person wanted his body, Han Fei was even more unscrupulous. He wanted to see how strong this so-called powerhouse on the verge of Tao proving was. He wanted to know how strong he could be. Facing Han Fei's terrifying knife technique, this ancient powerhouse had to take it seriously. No matter how strong he used to be, he was still in the recovery stage. Furthermore, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was a heaven's favorite that only appears once every 10,000 years. It was hard for him to imagine that someone who had not reached the celestial transformation realm could erupt with such terrifying power. If a star bead was born in the depths of Han Fei's soul after he turned into a star, who could kill him in the same realm? This man did not lie to Han Fei about one thing. Because in this person's view, Han Fei was dead for sure, so it didn't matter whether he lied or not. This matter was that he was indeed a human, and he was indeed an expert of this world. He had been forced to walk the path of the Blood Fiend. He had personally witnessed the destruction of the entire world and the fall of billions of humans. Thus he went crazy. The invaders wanted to obtain the origin of this world. Then he would eat the world's origin and self-destruct. His method in the past had been very simple. Even if he was destroyed, he would not allow the invaders to obtain this world's essence. Back then, after he obtained the world's origin, he had indeed destroyed himself. However, he didn't know that the world origin could be revived. Because of the powerful vitality of the world origin, he was revived again. Unfortunately, after the revival, he gained endless vitality, but he was also about to become a part of the world origin. How could he accept this? He hadn't avenged himself. Now that he had come back to life, how could he die so easily? So, with his terrifying vitality, he began to devour the evil energy. In the end, he embarked on this blood fiend path, and his strength soared and became stronger and stronger. He had indeed walked to the edge of the Tao proving realm, but he couldn't do so until he had avenged himself. Therefore, he released his vitality and let the outside world begin to recover. He was going to lure the former invaders to continue to come here. Unfortunately, he hadn't lured the former experts yet, but he had lured Han Fei, the body that he coveted. He found that if he had Han Fei's body, he could go further. Maybe he could prove the Tao or even go further after that. This made him see a brand new hope, a hope that was not the blood fiend body, but a legitimate path to godhood. At this moment, the stronger the power that Han Fei displayed, the more excited he was. Looking at the thousands of miles around him that were almost annihilated by Han Fei's slashes, he felt that he was closer and closer to a new life and a bright path. Han Fei saw the endless evil energy around him, rolling like blood, turning into a long blood-colored river that blocked his slash. No matter how much his power poured out, he could only cut open this long blood-colored river inch by inch. However, there was no way for him to continue. It was impossible for him to pierce through this ancient human. Han Fei didn't stop. With a thought, an array map unfolded, and 36 evil immortals, each with extremely terrifying power, charged at the ancient human. However, the ancient human nodded slightly. "This is not bad. If it was only that slash just now, I would have doubted your ability." In the eyes of the ancient human, Han Fei's move, 36 evil immortals, each slash could obliterate 1 or 2 evil spirits outside. If the 36 swords combined into one, even he would have to deal with the power that erupted. The ancient human raised his hand, and endless white bones appeared in the air. The white bones turned into a giant shield, which was filled with endless evil energy. Even though the imperial vermilion bird was absorbing it crazily, it couldn't absorb much. Boom, 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 as if a comet had hit the earth. Terrifying explosion ripples sounded one after another. The giant bone shield was finally broken. However, the 36 evil immortals were also destroyed. However, Han Fei didn't stop. He stretched out a finger, and at least 5,000 years of lifespan and half of his blood essence gathered on his fingers. Tao Convergence Sword. The ancient human couldn't help but frown. "Young man, don't you know how precious lifespan is? You should know that even though this slash is very powerful, it can't stop me." Then, the ancient human also made a slash. He used the blood fiend as a sword, which could destroy everything in the world. Han Fei could not help but be stunned. It was as if he saw a world withering away. It was a kind of wailing in despair, a kind of unwillingness left behind after giving up everything, a kind of hysterical roar of anger and rage. Huh? The ancient human thought he could penetrate Han Fei's Tao Convergence sword with one slash, but when he really touched that slash, he felt that this slash contained a lot of Tao. In fact, it was not much worse than the world-destroying sword that he comprehended. The only difference between the two was the difference in realm, the fundamental difference in strength. If this kid had turned into a star, he might not be able to block it if he used all his strength. No, he might not have been able to block it. However, this also proved that Han Fei was extraordinarily powerful, which also gave the ancient human an unprecedented hope. But at this moment, when the Tao Convergence sword collided with the world-destroying sword, the ancient human only felt that the power of the Tao Convergence sword instantly doubled. All he saw was 2 great Tao as one swords of the same level piercing through this apocalyptic sword and bolting out at the ancient race being. The latter stretched out his hand as a sword. Rumble, pooh! By the time he reappeared, the ancient human was already thousands of miles away. That arm of his had been melted away by a single strike from Han Fei. Not bad. This slash is indeed powerful and impossible to guard against. It should be the power of time, right? Han Fei's face was solemn, and his chest began to heave. This person was really strong. He was the strongest opponent he had fought so far. When he clashed with Pan Litian, he might have had a chance to escape. But fighting with this person, he was not a match at all. The ancient human looked at his arm. Suddenly, from the severed part of his body, a river of malevolent chi gathered in the void. It was as red as blood, and in the blink of an eye, he grew out an arm. Shoot! Han Fei was speechless. He had fought for a long time, but all he got was silence. What a headache! However, he was fighting with his life, so he could not give up. Otherwise, the performance would not be perfect. Fuse! Chirp! The king sparrow fused, and Han Fei began to absorb the malevolent qi. The primeval human said, "This bird of yours isn't bad either. It's very powerful, and the upper limit of its growth should be very high. It's a pity that it hasn't opened the sky yet, so you can't beat me with it." Han Fei roared, "It's not up to you whether I can win or not." Eye of cholera. The ancient human felt that some power was confusing him, but the difference in their levels was huge. He was only slightly distracted, and then he shook off the power. Han Fei suffered a backlash, but he did not retreat at all. He activated mental demon summoning. This time around, the expression of the ancient human changed drastically. He let out an indignant and hysterical roar. His voice was like a demonic tune that caused the surrounding tormented spirits to retreat. Many of them were even trembling in fear. Seeing this, Han Fei ran away as fast as he could. Although he had a plan, running away was the most reasonable choice at this time. Any illogical behavior would be counterproductive. Han Fei ran for 10 seconds. He even thought that he might be able to escape. However, 10 seconds later, Han Fei saw the void was a little twisted. When he looked again, he found that the ancient human had caught up with him. Han Fei was really shocked. He said in shock, "How can you be so fast?" The man was burning with malevolent qi at this moment, and his voice was full of anger. Extreme speed is just the starting point of speed. You don't know anything, and you want to escape from me? It seems that I've given you too much face. Puff! Han Fei felt a mental bombardment. He immediately vomited blood, and blood spurted out of his eyes, nose, and mouth. In the instant that his mind was lost, the ancient human had already placed a hand on his head. The ancient human revealed a sinister smile. "I will live on for you." Chapter 22:18. At this moment, Han Fei was already in the opponent's hand, but he couldn't let his guard down. Han Fei condensed a large amount of soul power between his eyebrows, and his body was covered with ownerless souls, trying to attack this person while trying to resist. However, this person also condensed blood energy between his eyebrows, and a strange spiritual power also burst out. Rumble! In the same place, a terrifying explosion took place, and the airwaves shook for 100,000 miles. And Han Fei and this ancient human didn't move. The main reason was that the ancient human didn't move. He said, "It's a pity that if I let you turn into a star, the consequences would be really unpredictable. But now you are still too young." With that, the ancient human gathered the power of his soul, trying to break through Han Fei's resistance and enter Han Fei's sea of consciousness. Although the ownerless souls on Han Fei's body were endless, they were constantly breaking. In the end, Han Fei couldn't resist anymore, and suddenly an extremely powerful soul directly hit his mind. "Ha ha ha, I will carry your past and walk to your future. If I take my revenge, I'll be able to prove my Tao in the blink of an eye. Who knows, I might even bring your body and harvest your godhood." Han Fei's soul was suppressed, but he didn't panic at all. Han Fei said, "Hey! Have you had enough fun?" In Han Fei's sea of consciousness, the ancient human felt something strange. He found that this person didn't have the slightest fear and was extremely relaxed, just like the posture of a winner. No matter how powerful you are, how can you compete with me in this state? Just when the ancient human's huge soul pressure was trying to crush and invade Han Fei's sea of consciousness and suppress Han Fei's soul. Suddenly, a small calabash suddenly appeared in Han Fei's sea of consciousness. Swish, 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 as the demon purification pot spun, 6 small vines slowly stretched out, not giving the ancient human's soul any chance to escape. What is this? I'm only 1 step away from the venerable emperor. How can I be suppressed? The ancient human's soul began to resist violently, but no matter how he resisted, he couldn't break free from the shackles of the small vines. Han Fei said with a smile, "Do you really think I dare to play with you like this without any trump cards? If it wasn't for the fact that I'm afraid of wasting it, you wouldn't even be able to enter my sea of consciousness. TSK, are you still coveting my body now? Han Fei heaved a sigh of relief. He had prepared so much and even wasted 5,000 years of his vitality to lure this person into his sea of consciousness just for this moment. If this person didn't want to possess him, then Han Fei could only ask his eldest senior brother for help. However, it wasn't the first or second time that he had been possessed. These people were always coveting his body. Under the suppression of the demon purification pot, Han Fei was confident that even the divine soul of a venerable emperor could be suppressed, not to mention that this person was not a venerable emperor. Roar. You and I are of the same race after all. I don't want to kill you. Let me go, I'll let you go. Han Fei sneered. Do you think I'm an idiot? Let you go so that you can continue to kill me? Then Han Fei said in his heart, Demon purification pot, destroy him, shatter his soul, and obliterate his consciousness. After all, Han Fei had been growing and becoming more and more compatible with the demon purification pot. At this moment, he could already partly control the demon purification pot. And this ancient human was indeed powerful. If the demon purification pot didn't take action, Han Fei would be doomed. Therefore, the demon purification pot was very self-aware. As it spun, the soul and spiritual consciousness of this ancient human were slowly obliterated in crazy roars and wails. However, because the soul of this ancient human was too powerful, even if his consciousness dissipated, Han Fei could still see countless memory fragments in his sea of consciousness. Among them, the most prominent memory was the memory of the destruction of this world. From that memory, Han Fei saw the figure of the heavenly cicada family, and there were heavenly cicada wings flapping. He saw the mountains, rivers, and earth were collapsing, and trillions of creatures were collapsing. Some strong masters were seizing the origin of the world and depriving the great Tao of this world. Han Fei even saw some people swallowing the luck of this world and absorbing the aura of creatures. When Han Fei saw these great means, he was horrified. Was there no so-called fire of retribution after torturing and killing so many creatures? Or did these people not care at all? Or was the so-called retribution just a lie? Han Fei wasn't sure, but he did see a world being destroyed. If he were in the chaotic ocean and suffered such a slaughter, Han Fei would probably be even crazier because of this ancient human. Don't worry, your enemy is also my enemy. The heavenly cicada family and the special race that devours human beings. One day I will trample them under my feet one by one. I will obliterate them. Because I am the human emperor of this world. At this moment, the soul of the ancient human was finally completely obliterated, and he could no longer struggle. It seemed that he heard Han Fei's words and gave up struggling. In any case, this person was obliterated, and his soul turned into endless ownerless souls. However, Han Fei felt that his soul had been seriously polluted, so he didn't want any of them. If he needed ownerless souls, there were plenty of ignorant souls in the energy crystals. However, when the last terrifying soul was obliterated by Han Fei into a milky white bead, it caught Han Fei's attention. At this moment, the 6 small vines were all inserted in this bead, as if they were extracting the energy in this milky white bead. In Han Fei's mind, information emerged. Name original star bead introduction. The stars left by a star transformation powerhouse after his death are generally very difficult to preserve. This star bead contains a higher level of soul power. Consuming it can greatly improve the power of the soul, experience the star transformation process, have a chance to comprehend the mysteries of the origin sea, and obtain the inheritance of the deceased. Level Sky Splitter Quality Ultra Quality contains soul power 100213101 effect, helps the user understand the origin mark, the star transformation process, and even the experience of the various stages of the Sky Splitter state. When Han Fei saw this information, he couldn't help but be shocked. Wow, more than 10 million soul power. No wonder it crushed me. It's more than twice as much as mine. If it weren't for the previous major improvement, this guy's soul power would be 3 times that of his. Besides, this might be the leftover soul after a lot of this person's soul was obliterated. However, Han Fei was a little puzzled. Could he eat so much soul power now? Would it be like hundreds of years ago, when the gap between his soul power and physique was too great, resulting in a great loss of combat power? However, such a good thing was right in front of him. How could he just give it up? The demon purification pot said that this thing was extremely difficult to preserve, so no one would think of this original star bead. Therefore, when Han Fei slowly opened his eyes, the original star bead floated out from between his eyebrows. Han Fei stretched out his hand, took out a fishing rod, and immediately fished out the 9-Palace Destiny Ruler. Combined with the 9-Palace Destiny Ruler, Han Fei calculated and found that the divination was peaceful. There was neither great danger nor great fortune. First of all, it was certain that the divination of the desperate situation had been broken, and the real desperate situation was this ancient human being. Secondly, if he took this original star bead, although it didn't seem dangerous, it didn't seem to have any benefits. He didn't know how the divination became like this. But in short, this original star bead was edible. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. He didn't care about Xue Sha's body that was standing there like a statue. Since his soul was gone, the threat of this body was 0. Han Fei looked back at the tormented spirits and found that they still didn't dare to come in. Maybe they were used to it. After all, this Xue Sha's body was still there. Han Fei didn't care about it. He immediately sat cross-legged, opened his mouth, and swallowed the original star bead. As soon as the original star bead entered his mouth, it turned into nothingness. In Han Fei's mind, a large amount of information instantly emerged. At the beginning of the information, it seemed that he was turning into a star. After the origin sea expanded to more than 400,000 kilometers, it began to turn into a star. It must be because this ancient human didn't have very good resources, so he could only use the endless evil spirit to turn into a star. His origin sea was full of blood. The entire origin sea began to bend like a piece of paper, from the surface into an arc, and from the arc into a ball. When the ball was born, Han Fei seemed to be standing on a star, but the star he saw was full of magma, fire, and broken walls. Han Fei felt anger and hatred from the endless flames. The broken walls that covered the earth seemed to be the source of the power on this star. Han Fei saw that on the star, there was a great Tao full of evil, nourishing the demons in the flames. Countless hideous faces seemed to be crawling out of the ground. This entire star was full of this evil. The scene changed, and Han Fei suddenly felt that he was standing in the distant starry sky, looking at this star. Suddenly, it was covered by the flowing fire in the starry sky. When the flowing fire surrounded this star, it formed its own star belt. However, this was not the end. It seemed that the evil in this starry sky was approaching here. There were broken stars, floating over and surrounding this star. There was a strange demonic sun, shining blood, illuminating this hellish star. Han Fei was a little horrified. He seemed to understand the path after turning into a star. Turning into a star, turning one's origin sea into a star, and then using the power of one's star great Tao to gather the same great Tao in the star sea. At the same time, Han Fei also understood one thing, that was, the attraction of the great Tao existed. Because the great Tao attracted, stars could be gathered. In reality, killing someone with the same great Tao might leave their origin sea, attract it to one's natal star, and gradually turn it into one's own. This was the fundamental reason why the great Tao attracted. I see. Chapter 22:19. Han Fei learned a lot from this star bead. He even felt that the star conversion technique wasn't that great. Of course, this primordial star bead wasn't just for Han Fei to comprehend the star conversion technique. This primordial star bead also contained a lot of soul power. However, According to Han Fei's current knowledge, wasn't the strength of soul power determined only by the amount of soul power? Why did this star bead say that it had a higher level of soul power? Could it be that even people like Gu Tingnan and the others didn't know that there were differences in the power of the divine soul? Unfortunately, before Han Fei found an answer to this question, this star bead had almost been digested by him. And Han Fei felt that his soul power was soaring. It was said that part of his soul power could be improved, but Han Fei didn't feel right. It was more than just a part of his soul power. It felt like his soul power was self-replicating. In a short time, Han Fei felt that his soul power had soared by 1,000,000. How could it be? Han Fei tried to suppress it and even summoned the demon purification pot to swallow it. However, the demon purification pot didn't respond. So Han Fei hurried to wake up the Emperor Sparrow, Little Black, Little White, and Old Yuan, who had just fallen asleep, to share the pressure with him. In the end, Han Fei felt that his soul power might have increased by nearly 2,000,000 points. After the star bead was completely digested, Han Fei looked at his information. Owner Han Fei, level greater than 101, sky opening. See Family Tree 200016, Chaotic Energy 1. 83 million spiritual power 6486012, perception range 6. 5 million kilometers, power 3092625 waves, first spiritual heritage, primordial vein, second spiritual heritage, vein of eternal darkness, first spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 95, second spiritual beast Emperor Sparrow, level 99, main art, time fishing, level 8 of void fishing, Emperor level, divine quality. Han Fei was shocked when he saw the information. I'm screwed. Didn't the 9-palace ruler of Providence give me a flat hexagram? How could I balance a hexagram when my soul power had soared to such an extent? So, Han Fei tried to stand up, only to find that he couldn't control his body at all. The strength of his divine soul had already reached a ridiculous level. Han Fei tried to control his body with his soul, but the power of his soul condensed into a mark of a jade bridge in his mind. This is the origin mark? When Han Fei saw the jade bridge mark, he knew what it was. This should be the origin mark that Imochi had told him about. Through Neza's memory, Gu Tingnan said that if one's divine soul power exceeded 5,000,000, it was possible to see through the origin mark of a powerhouse in the same realm. Now, he didn't know if experts of the same level could see through it, but his own source imprint had appeared first. However, this mark was just a mark. It wouldn't be of much use. Han Fei thought to himself, this thing is so precious that I have to use part of my soul power to protect this mark from being invaded. But now, Han Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry, because he had underestimated the power of the primordial star bead. It had created a huge gap between his soul and his physique. The two can no longer maintain a good balance. Han Fei stood up tremblingly, feeling dizzy as if he could fall when he walked. He tried to control this imbalance, but when he raised his hand, he set off an energy storm, which was difficult to control at all. Han Fei hurriedly began to suppress his strength, from the heaven-opening realm to the Pioneer Sea realm, and then from the Pioneer Sea realm to the Pioneer Sea realm. Son of AB*TCH, I've lost this opportunity. The reason why Han Fei dared to break into the desperate situation was that he had a trump card, and he was in urgent need of growth now, so he broke in with the mentality of seeking wealth amidst danger. Now, he had obtained the opportunity, but it was a little too much. It caused his strength to be extremely unbalanced, and there was a huge decline. This won't do. If I encounter another heaven-opening realm powerhouse, I'm afraid I won't be able to beat him. Han Fei thought to himself, if at this time, those heaven-opening realm ghost spirits behind me rush over, I'm afraid I won't even be able to fight back. Han Fei thought to himself, if those heaven-opening realm ghost spirits behind me rush over at this time, I probably won't even have the strength to fight back. At this time, Han Fei suddenly had an idea when he saw the body of the ancient human powerhouse. It seems that I still have the Tao of puppets to use, right? Immediately, he sat down cross-legged and began to refine the corpse. This refinement directly refined 300,000 points of Han Fei's divine soul power. When Han Fei refined Xue Fei, he only spent less than 10,000 points of divine soul power. However, this person consumed 300,000 points of his divine soul power in one go, which showed how powerful he was. However, because of this, he had gained an expert that was at least comparable to Pan Litian. That was because Han Fei was not sure how powerful this person was. Zhao Honghuang's strength was unknown, so he could only compare it with the strongest emperor that he had fought before. Han Fei felt that this ancient human should be as powerful as Pan Litian. After all, he could not shake this guy even if he used all his means and unleashed his strength crazily. However, this puppet was not the puppet of the living dead. It was just a puppet that needed to be driven by his own divine soul. The only special thing was that this puppet had the evil blood body, and its evil qi was too intense. Han Fei tried to control it to attack the tormented spirit. However, he did not know that before he attacked, but when he attacked, he was shocked. The tormented spirits did not dare to resist and chose to surrender. Hiss! Han Fei gasped. Damn, this evil blood body is a bit too powerful. Immediately, Han Fei thought of something. There's still a war outside. Let's get down to business. I can't stay here for long. I have to find a way to get the world source here first, and then go to the Sea of Origin. Oh no. Han Fei thought of something, and the ancient human puppet carried him on its shoulders. Because his soul power was too strong now, he didn't plan to move his body. With a thought, he took out the fishing rod, broke into time, fished out the nautical multiverse, and searched for the origin of the world with a thought. Because there was no powerhouse like the ancient human to stop him, Han Fei's speed was not slow. Besides, when the ancient powerhouse chased Han Fei, he unleashed a power that surpassed the limit of speed. Han Fei was a little confused. What kind of speed was that? How could it surpass the limit of speed? The first thing that came to his mind was the three kinds of power he saw when he reached the limit of speed. One was a void at the limit of speed, which was dotted with starlight, like a sea of stars. In addition to the sea of stars, there was a white hole, which led to an unknown place. In addition to the white hole, there was also a staircase, which led to an unknown place. Han Fei planned to ask his senior brothers and senior sisters of the Void Temple about this question at the end of the next decade. If Han Fei hadn't touched the speed beyond the limit of speed, it would have been fine, but now that he had touched it, he couldn't pretend that he hadn't touched it before. However, because he needed the guidance of the nautical multitude, Han Fei couldn't let this puppet unleash the power beyond the limit of speed. Or rather, he couldn't unleash it. Han Fei could let this puppet fight, but this was an instinctive battle. And if he wanted this puppet to unleash the power beyond the limit of speed, he had to know how to do it first. 2 hours later, when the ancient puppet carried Han Fei to an underground lake, Han Fei sensed infinite vitality. Is this the world source? Han Fei looked at the clear lake water. The surface of the lake was emitting a light green mist. Around the river, some creatures seemed to be in deep sleep. Among these creatures there were ferocious beasts, birds, fish, and crustaceans. However, some of them were still in embryonic form, some were about to take shape, and some couldn't even be distinguished. But there seemed to be a tube on every creature, which seemed to be absorbing the power from the world's source. Han Fei looked at a random demonic plant creature, and information popped up in his eyes. Name: Wisteria thorn grass, incubating. Introduction. This is a kind of spiritual plant-type creature that is randomly born from the origin of the world and the heavenly Tao of this world. This kind of creature is born by the world source. Once it is incubated, it will eventually become one of the dominating creatures of this world. Current incubation time, 64201. Incubating, unconscious for the time being. Level 76 quality, legendary spiritual energy 153664, realm, seeking Tao combat skill, incubating, absorbable. Remarks, a creature being incubated in the world source. After reading this information, Han Fei couldn't help but take a deep breath. This was the same as the nature of the birth of the world and the birth of the gods in the primordial world. A world could incubate creatures of this world. Compared to the other living beings in this world, these living beings that were nurtured by heaven and earth were equivalent to godlike existences. Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. A world incubates creatures, and the so-called heavenly spiritual treasures, chaotic spiritual treasures, and so on. Were the thousands of clans in the vast sea also born in this way? Han Fei looked around. There were only about 8 creatures that seemed to have almost taken shape, and there were about a dozen others that hadn't taken shape yet. And these were around the small lake of the world source. In the midair, in other places nearby, in some small bubbles floating in the air, Han Fei could also see some creatures. However, the strength and quality of those creatures were much lower. Pop! Han Fei saw a small bubble burst, and then he saw a ray of light disappear. It should be a fresh life that was created and went directly to the outside world of this world. Han Fei couldn't help but think of the heaven-opening state powerhouses in the outside world. How were they born? Was it possible that it was born in this way? Han Fei was shocked. He was wondering if the origin sea would become like this in the end. No, Han Fei was more suspicious that the so-called non-primitive graveyards were actually the origin seas where the experts of the past perished. Although they died, the origin sea was still operating and some new creatures were still born. From a certain point of view, perhaps those who perished were not necessarily truly dead. Would they be reborn in their own origin seas after a long period of time? Chapter 2220. This was the first time that Han Fei had seen a world creating life. At this time, other people would be amazed by the amazing craftsmanship of this world and would have a lot of speculations. Han Fei even wondered if this was the path that the origin sea was going to take. The origin sea that was born would also produce the so-called world origin, and these world origins could leave their masters and randomly create creatures, give them life, great Tao, and so on. Han Fei guessed that if the starting ground was really the origin sea of the strong as he had imagined, then, theoretically, the masters of all the starting grounds that could be broken into should have died, right? Of course, Han Fei actually felt that his guess might not be right, because these primitive cemeteries were too big, reaching hundreds of millions, billions, or even tens of billions of kilometers. Whose origin sea could be so big? If it was really so big, how strong would it be, and how many opportunities would it be? Han Fei couldn't help but take a deep breath and let the puppet put him down. Although his current state was very poor, it was not a big problem for him to walk. It was just that the rhythm of his soul and body was not quite right. Han Fei slowly walked to the edge of the lake and looked at it. He knew that this was the world origin, but he didn't know if it was because the world origin didn't appear in the form of a fruit, so he didn't see any information. Han Fei took a deep breath. The world origin could accelerate the conversion between the power of the soul and the power of the body. Now he urgently needed to strengthen the process of this conversion. He didn't have hundreds of years to slowly convert now. What he needed now was to quickly integrate his soul and body. No matter how long it would take to consolidate after the integration, he had to integrate it first. Han Fei was about to approach, but in a moment of carelessness, he slipped and fell into the lake with a splash. Damn it! Han Fei didn't care. If he fell, then so be it. Anyway, he was going to absorb the world origin. Immediately, Han Fei guided the origin lake here into the origin sea. When this power entered the origin sea, Han Fei felt that the entire origin sea began to glow with vitality. His origin sea was changing at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the past, a world origin fruit could make the land more fertile, make the origin sea more solid, and make the origin sea produce more power of the great Tao. However, this time, Han Fei felt that the effect was much better. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 1 month. It was not until 1 month and 3 days later that Han Fei felt that he had completely swallowed and digested the world origins. And Han Fei's most intuitive experience was that as much as 60% of his potential had been tapped. However, Han Fei didn't wake up. His origin sea was different from others. This time, he had truly gained too many benefits. The vitality of the entire origin sea was too rich. It had practically turned into a world of spirit plant. Han Fei knew that if nothing unexpected happened, all the vitality and lifespan that he had lost in the past might be made up for this time. He even felt that his lifespan might even be extended. At this moment, Han Fei felt that in the origin sea, the rate at which the great Tao was growing had doubled. This place began to naturally nurture spiritual energy. Many great Tao opportunities were inexplicably injected into this place. This place seemed to be connected to the heavenly Tao. Unfortunately, this was not what Han Fei pursued. What Han Fei pursued was the return of all things to the origin. In this manner, he furiously increased the origin sea's tolerance limit. All resources and energy were transformed into the original power of the origin sea itself. If Han Fei pursued this effect, he wouldn't have chosen the path of returning to the origin at all. Therefore, with a thought from Han Fei, the spiritual plants in the origin sea began to crumble. The mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas here began to collapse. Everything here began to melt. 3 months later, Han Fei's origin sea had been reshaped again. The world was reorganized spontaneously. 5 months later, a small number of demonic plants, mineral veins, earth veins, mountains, rivers, and oceans were born in Han Fei's origin sea again. On this day, Han Fei suddenly sat up in the lake of the world origin. At this time, the lake had dried up. The creatures that were supposed to be born around it were still the same as before, but it would be very difficult for them to continue to grow. If they wanted to be born, they might have to wait until this world recovered again. And Han Fei quickly got up, feeling that his strength seemed to have returned. At least he no longer needed to control it at the Pioneer Sea realm. He couldn't help but look at his information again. Owner Han Fei, level greater than 101, sky opening, C 10,000 family tree 200016 chaotic energy 1. 87 million spiritual power, 5720165 perception range 6. 5 million kilometers, power 347, 6459 waves, first spiritual heritage, primordial vein, second spiritual heritage, vein of eternal darkness, first spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 95, second spiritual beast emperor sparrow, level 99, main art time fishing, level 8 of void fishing, emperor level, divine quality. When he saw this information, Han Fei let out a long sigh of relief. It seemed that after returning to the origin sea, his soul power and physical power were slightly balanced. However, the gap between the two was still too big. He sensed that his current combat power was roughly equivalent to that of when he had just opened the sky. His combat power was still greatly reduced, and he couldn't exert his real strength at all. But in any case, at least he could use the power of the heaven-opening realm, which was already very good. Han Fei calculated and found that it had been half a year since he entered this place. Originally, the exploration of Land of Resurgence No. 3 was supposed to last for about 2 years. Now almost a year had passed. Although he had gained benefits, he needed time to digest them, so Han Fei had to get out as soon as possible. And the way out didn't seem to be difficult. This time, Han Fei didn't even need to use the nautical panorama. He directly found a turtle floating in midair that was almost fully pregnant. He drilled into the creature's bubble and cast the apocalyptic divine technique. When the creature matured, Han Fei only felt a flash of light, and he directly appeared in the outside world. Under his butt was a Tao-seeking state turtle. After leaving the primeval land, Han Fei didn't go to Nez's clone and the others immediately. Instead, he entered his origin sea. In the origin sea, Han Fei tested the transformation speed of his soul power and physical power. He soon learned that with his current transformation speed, he could transform about 6 points of soul power a day. This number was less than Han Fei expected. He guessed that 60% of the potential of the origin sea had been excavated this time. It was equivalent to at least a dozen world origin fruit. In the end, the energy conversion between the two had only doubled. Didn't this mean that the difficulty of the conversion was increasing? But in any case, he had to restore his strength to a certain extent first. So, regardless of how the battle outside was going, Han Fei cultivated in seclusion for half a year. Half a year later, Han Fei estimated that the battle outside should have come to an end, or even been over. After all, it seemed that more than a year had passed since he came in. This number 3 revival land was so big. With the strength of the sea expansion realm, he had been to almost all the places that he should have been to. Although Han Fei didn't want to come out of seclusion now, he had to. When Han Fei came out of seclusion, he looked at his information again, only to see the following information. Owner Han Fei, level greater than 101, sky opening, C 10,000 family tree 200016, chaotic energy 1. 87 million spiritual power, 5144195 perception range 6. 5 million kilometers, power 405, 2429 waves, first spiritual heritage, primordial vein, second spiritual heritage, vein of eternal darkness, first spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 95, second spiritual beast king sparrow, level 99, main art time fishing, level 8 of void fishing, emperor level, divine quality. There were no other changes, but the gap between his soul power and his physical strength had shrunk to only 1 million. It must be noted that his soul power was more than twice as much as his physical strength before. However, Han Fei wasn't excited at all. Last time, it took him 300 years to digest this rapid growth. This time, although he completely stabilized his cultivation with the help of the essence returning law enforcer. But in the half a year of seclusion after he came out, he forcibly balanced his soul and body, and the drawback was the same as last time. And if he wanted to completely stabilize his strength, although it might not take him 300 years, it probably wouldn't be far from it. Of course, if there were endless battles to hone his strength, the time might be shortened. Hey! Sure enough, the stronger you are, the harder it is to cheat. It's really inhumane to hone oneself for hundreds of years. At the entrance of the abyss of death, the 4 sky openers of the number 3 revival land couldn't sit still anymore. The squid said to the jellyfish, "Mercury, that man has been in there for almost a year, hasn't he? Although his incarnation did help us a lot, we still sacrificed a lot of experts on our side. Now the world origin in the abyss of death is no longer overflowing. Is it possible that the guy is going to abandon us after taking the world origin?" The big starfish said, "Did he even abandon his incarnation?" "His incarnation is quite strong, very strong." The squid said, "So what if it's strong? The world origin is gone. We don't want to stay here, but to leave. Over the past year, you should know that a revived world like ours will be destroyed as soon as it appears. So we can't stay here." The clam girl said, "Okay. Didn't they say that their trial would last 2 years? We still have time. We can wait." The starfish sighed. "Why don't I go to his clone and ask him? After all, if it goes on like this, I'm afraid that we will all be killed." At this moment, Han Fei suddenly appeared. None of the 4 of them noticed him in advance. "Hiss," the clam girl said, "Brother Ren, you're out?" Han Fei said casually, "It's too dangerous down there, so I wasted some time. Don't be suspicious. I said I would take you away, and I won't break my promise." What's the situation outside? Chapter 22-21. Just as Han Fei expected, once there were no ambushes, the terrifying combat power of the Scavenger City and the Primordial City was revealed. In the year that he entered the Primordial Land, according to the emperors, the enemies on both sides had probably lost less than 50 people, and this was the result with the help of the Vagrant City. After all, although the number 3 Revival Land also had nearly 100 peak stage C expansion experts, compared to the Scavenger City and the Primordial City, the number was still too small. Without the help of the Vagrant City, most of them might have been killed by now. Han Fei guessed that the 4 emperors also complained to him, saying that more than half of the top Pioneer C expansion experts on their side had died, and if this went on, there would be no one left. After Han Fei confirmed that during the year that he was away, all the major camps had suffered losses. Since entering this place, about 40% of the experts of the Scavenger City had died, and nearly 50% had died. The Primordial City was a little better, but not much better. This was mainly due to the ambushes in the first 3 months, which killed a wave of experts in advance. And on the Vagrant City's side, although under the leadership of Nez's clone, they mainly ambushed the other 2 major forces, but they had lost the right to hunt resources. In fact, many people were very uncomfortable about this. After all, this time they didn't just come to fight. This was the land of revival, and these creatures had a lot of life origin and world origin in their bodies. But now they couldn't get any benefit. It was equivalent to becoming pure thugs. How could they be happy? Somewhere near a cave, someone said, "Boss Neza, how long are we going to cooperate with them? Although we don't mind cooperating with the native creatures, they can't just give us nothing. At least give each of us some world origin, right?" "Yes, Boss Neza, we've been fighting for more than a year, but we haven't seen anything. They are constantly getting stronger, and we just keep fighting. Boss Neza, should we go ask the natives for some resources?" Han Fei's personality had always been strong. He said indifferently, "In this trip to the number 3 Revival Land, you don't have to get any benefits here. When you return to the Vagrant City, the Lord of Silence will give you enough compensation." "Hiss, Boss Neza, was this arranged by the Master of Silence?" "Boss Neza, this is not a joke. Will the Silent Master personally reward us?" "Beside Neza's clone, Long Yu roared, I said I'll give it to you. Otherwise we've been cooperating with the natives for so long. If we were to turn around and attack them now, where would we stand?" Suddenly, Neza's clone stood up. "All right, it's about time. It's time for a big one. Everyone." Neza's clone smirked. His main body was finally back. 3 days later. In the depths of a certain underwater forest, Bai Ranran said, the primitive natives seem to have given up on resisting. They're even abandoning the earth veins here. It looks like the natives really don't have enough manpower. Ghostblade, could it be an ambush? Bai Ranran replied, the chances are high, but it's also perfect. We can finish this in one go. The other side. Untufu cut open a mountain range, and looted the top-grade spiritual stones and the earth vein water contained in it. He sneered. They are retreating in an orderly manner. Now, they don't even want to fight while retreating or ambushing. It seems that they're running out of manpower. Butcher, should we follow up with another attack? Bam! The man who spoke was slapped away. Untufu cursed. Follow up my A**s. They're clearly luring the enemy. When the enemy abandoned all the battlefields, the only possibility was to launch an unprecedented ambush. Am I that stupid? Yes. Butcher, I'm overthinking. Untufu snorted coldly and said, behind these aborigines, there must be a guy who is giving them advice. We were ambushed when we entered the number 3 land of revival, and then we were forced to fight head-on. If it weren't for a top master like me, most of them might still be fighting head-on. Butcher, do you mean to let the Scavenger City go first? Untufu said with a smile, not only will Scavenger City go first, but those fellows from Wanderer City will also go first. Since we came in, we rarely saw the people from the Wanderer City fight. Instead, we often encountered the guys from the Scavenger City. It seems that they are laughing at us and the Scavenger City." As Ntufu spoke, his eyes were cold. In fact, he had a vague guess in his heart, but he didn't think it was possible. In the abyss of death. At this moment, 46 fierce beasts and 103 sea demons at the peak level of the Pioneer Sea State had gathered. This was the last force of the number 3 Land of Revival. In front of the 4 emperors, Han Fei's body began to twist and eventually turned into a big crab. The 4 emperors were speechless when they saw Han Fei's trick. How could he change so easily? You don't even have the same bloodline, okay? The crab that Han Fei turned into was at the peak level of the Pioneer Sea State. If he became too strong and reached the Pioneer Sea State, no one would dare to fight him. Han Fei felt that as long as Bai Ranran and Ntufu were not fools, they should be able to notice from the natives of the number 3 Land of Revival that someone must be commanding them. However, with the arrogance of these people, there was no way that they would be afraid of the final battle when both sides were on the battlefield. Because they must have also discovered that there were not enough strong masters in the Land of Revival at all. Another 8 days passed. In the Wanderer City, Neza, with about 100 people, ran into the people from the Scavenger City on the way. However, this time, the 2 sides didn't show any signs of fighting. When Bai Ranran saw Neza's clone, she asked, "Shall we fight?" Han Fei replied, "I don't have time." Just 3 short words were enough to explain the state of both sides. This trip to the Land of Revival lasted for a total of 2 years. They didn't get many benefits, but they lost nearly 50% of their manpower. How could they still want to fight the other 2 forces? Even if they wanted to fight, this was not the time. They had to get rid of the natives of this Land of Revival first, and then deal with the grudges between the 3 forces. And the reason why the 2 sides met was naturally not because of coincidence, but because their destination was the same. But until now, the only ones who hadn't shown up yet were the guys from the primitive city. When Neza, Bai Ranran, and the others rushed to the abyss of death with more than 170 people, they saw that the battle had already been set up. A crabman, leading a group of ferocious beasts at the peak of the Pioneer Sea realm, was guarding in front of a big pit. Immediately, Neza said indifferently, 50 against 200. "Where do you get your confidence from?" The crabman in the lead shouted, "Why did you break into our world?" Neza said, "Hand over the origin of the world, and I won't be your enemy." Seeing that Neza spoke so straightforwardly, Bai Ranran thought to herself that this guy was bold enough to ask. If you asked for the origin of the world, it was equivalent to destroying their foundation. How could they give it to you? This kind of thing, after all, had to be fought. However, the problem now was, who would fight first? This was a problem. Neza looked at Bai Ranran and said, "How about we each send 50 people?" Bai Ranran replied straightforwardly, "Okay." Neza's clone was the first to stand out, followed by 49 people in a row. Neza said, "The rest of you, pay attention to the rear. The bastards from the primitive city might have an ambush. We have to be careful." On Bai Ranran's side, he looked at Tian Hong. Tian Hong immediately took a few steps back, and he stayed to guard. Ghost Blade and another group of people followed her. It seemed that this was the final battle, and Bai Ranran didn't have any special thoughts. The only thing she was curious about was whether these people really came to die. Bai Ranran didn't think so. She was thinking about whether the cave behind these creatures was an ambush or a fortuitous opportunity. But now, no one thought so much. They all felt that no matter what, they should talk about it after killing this group of natives. Neza led Long Yu and the others, while Bai Ranran led Ghost Blade and the others and attacked at the same time. On the other side, the giant crab was leading 2 giant hammers, charging toward the group of people. It looked like it was going to fight to the death. Kill. Han Fei carried the big hammers, and lightning marks suddenly appeared in the void. To Ranran's surprise, she saw that the leading crab turned into a flash of light and was even faster than Ghostblade. Bam! Bam! With 2 hammers, 2 experts from the city of scavengers were directly smashed into pieces, and even their souls were obliterated by Han Fei. With a flip of his hand, lightning exploded, and on the side of the city of wanderers, another expert was smashed into pieces, but he didn't really die. Ranran was shocked by the scene. She glanced at Neza and saw that his eyes were filled with astonishment as well. Neza's clone roared, "Everyone, avoid this crab." Ranran and Neza gave the same command. She found that this crab was very strong. It was so strong that she didn't even have time to react when it burst out just now. It must be noted that even a heaven-opening state expert couldn't kill 2C expansion cultivators in an instant, but this crab did it. Ranran had reason to suspect that this crab was the expert behind the number 3 Land of Revival. Chapter 22-22. Ranran, Ghostblade, and Neza's clone rushed at the crab at the same time. However, Han Fei's combat power was far beyond their imagination. They felt the terrifying vitality in Han Fei, and at the same time, they could feel that Han Fei borrowed the power of the Way of Heaven. Therefore, Ranran thought that Han Fei could burst out such a strong combat power because he borrowed the power of the origin of the world. Because she found that this guy's strength was far greater than Tianhong's. His speed was completely at the extreme speed, and his Taoist aura was in line with the Way of Heaven. All this told her that this crab was a strong master on the same level as her. And after borrowing the power of the origin of the world, his strength was even stronger than hers. In a flash, Ranran ran the power of the Way in her body, and the air around her shook. Her speed directly reached the extreme, and she actually caught up with Han Fei. This was the first time that Han Fei saw Ranran's real attack. It turned out that this woman also used a knife. Her knife light was attached to the soul-devouring power, which could interfere with the soul. Even though Ranran burst out, when she blocked Han Fei's hammer, the terrifying force had already sent her flying thousands of miles away. Puff! Ranran wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. She couldn't believe that she was injured by a head-on blow. However, when Ranran saw that Neza's universe ring was smashed away and the red silken silk array was directly smashed by the 2 hammers, she immediately felt much better. Sure enough, Neza was also no match for this crab. Ranran and Neza's clone were repelled. Han Fei sneered in his heart and immediately stared at Ghostblade. In fact, he could crazily hunt the king of the scavenger city. But it didn't seem right to hunt them all the time. But Ghostblade was extremely strong. Everyone could understand that he wanted to kill the strong master first. Han Fei's giant hammer was shining with golden light, and there was a thunderous sound in the void. That was Han Fei chasing Ghostblade. In just an instant, the 2 had crossed the void for tens of thousands of miles and fought 3 times. Gotcha! On the 3rd time there was a cracking sound. It turned out that Ghostblade's double knives were penetrated. These 2 knives, the hands of the Ghostblade, were broken by Han Fei. Ranran's body suddenly erupted with a terrifying blood qi. She held a long blue saber in her hand, and a white light appeared between her eyebrows. Upon closer inspection, it seemed to be a sea pen-like lifeform. It looked very much like the white feather of an immortal. When Ranran fused with the companion spirit, Han Fei vaguely saw the void distort, and the distorted void attacked him. In terms of speed, it feels like it has surpassed the limit of speed. Other than the increase in speed, Ranran's companion spirit had also created an afterimage for her. But this afterimage actually possessed 100% of Ranran's battle prowess. No wonder Ranran could be the strongest in the inner battalion of the law enforcement camp. Her associated spirit was very powerful. In terms of combat power, this might be a little stronger than his Gemini divine art. However, the abilities of her companion spirit were far inferior to the Gemini divine incantation. Han Fei actually withstood the attacks of 4 top masters alone. This caused the surrounding spectators to be extremely astonished. Could a native be this strong? On Han Fei's side, the battle speed was too fast and the battle efficiency was too high. Even though it was 4 against 1, they couldn't suppress him. Even when Han Fei spat out knife light, he even cut off the ghost blade under the siege of 4 people. The characteristics of the ghost blade were that he was fast and had high attack power. But his shortcomings were also obvious. His physique was not strong enough, and his means were limited. Unfortunately, this ghost blade mastered a kind of death substitution technique. At the moment he was cut, this ghost blade seemed to have shed a layer of shell, and his body appeared thousands of kilometers away. Interesting. Han Fei could feel that even if he killed the ghost blade again, it would be useless. He should be able to continue shedding. However, he also knew that this shedding method couldn't last forever. He was thinking that as long as he killed him several times at a time, he should be able to kill him until he couldn't shed his shell anymore. At this time, except for the battle on Han Fei's side, the native masters led by him were no longer able to resist. After all, the 2 sides had twice as many people as them. At this time, it was already not bad to ensure that they didn't die. Han Fei roared, "Everybody, retreat to the ancient land." The ancient land that Han Fei was talking about was naturally the primordial ancient land. There were tormented spirits everywhere. It could be said that if these people went in, they would all die. If they really dared to go in, none of them would survive. And the native creatures of Land of Revival number 3 were already aware that they were in a perilous situation. Although they didn't know Han Fei, the Emperor here had already ordered them to obey Han Fei's orders. Therefore, although many creatures knew how terrifying the abyss of death was, compared to being killed by these foreign invaders and having their life origin and world origin taken away, it was better for them to die. Therefore, following Han Fei's order, these creatures didn't stop. They all retreated and swarmed into the abyss of death. As the crab that Han Fei had transformed into was too strong, Bai Ran and the others wanted to stop him, but they couldn't. They could only let Han Fei lead the people into the abyss of death. However, in the eyes of Bai Ran and the others, the abyss of death was clearly a trap. They felt that this was the last place for the masters of this place to fight. How could there not be a backup plan? However, they just thought that there would be a backup plan here, but they didn't think that this was a hopeless place. After all, they saw with their own eyes that Han Fei led such a large group of native experts at the peak of the sea expansion stage into the abyss. Bai Ran looked at Neza's clone. Although we've gained a lot of resources on this trip, we've gained very little world origin. In this place, everything within 100,000 kilometers grows and is rich in species. Especially near this abyss, where the veins of the earth converge, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is abundant. If I'm not mistaken, this is probably the place where the world origin is born. Neza asked, so? Bai Ran said, this is the primordial land. There can't be less world origin here. Neza said, all things share. The world origin here is not infinite. At most, there are only about a dozen world origin fruit. Why should I take the risk? Long Yu agreed. That's right. This is clearly a trap. Besides, Neza's clone glanced into the distance. Untufu, since you're here, why are you hiding? I'm afraid it's impossible for you to reap the benefits from us. Untufu was also good at arrays and was a master of arrays. Besides, he was not as bad as he looked. He had a lot of tricks up his sleeve. After being exposed by Neza, the latter didn't hide anymore. After all, the city of wanderers and the city of scavengers didn't fight, so there was no point in hiding. Untufu laughed and said, what? You don't dare to go in, and now you think of me? Now you want to invite me to join your alliance. When you killed my people in the 9th Revival Land, did you ever think of asking me for help? Neza shrugged. I didn't kill them. Find her. Han Fei pointed at Bai Ran, as if it had nothing to do with him. Antufu sneered. Ranran is not a good person, and neither are you, Neza. I know you called me out because you want me to give you people, but why? I don't care about those world origin fruit. If you really want me to give you people, give me some real benefits. For example, life origin crystals, earth vein spring water, energy crystals, and ultra-quality spiritual stone mines. Han Fei and Bai Ranran said at the same time, How many do you want? At this time, no one would run into the abyss of death at will. Everything in it was unknown. But the infamily was different. With the god's arrival technique, many experts of the primitive city could have the power of the heaven-opening realm for a short time. Even if the experts of the infamily joined, even if they encountered a heaven-opening realm expert, they would have the power to fight. Therefore, if the infamily didn't participate in the exploration of the abyss of death, it wouldn't be appropriate for the two forces to send people in. If too few people went in, they wouldn't be able to kill these natives. That crab alone could kill many people. If too many people went in case of an accident, the primitive city would be the biggest winner. Moreover, if too many people from the city of scavengers and the city of wanderers died, with Ntufu's character, he would definitely cause trouble outside. Of course, they could also completely give up the abyss of death, but if they gave up, there would be nothing left to explore in the third revival land. If they didn't go to the biggest secret place, how could they gain more? And if they didn't enter the abyss of death, it meant that they would lose so many people in vain this time. In the end, they didn't even kill the natives. Who would be able to face that? Furthermore, what everyone was most uncertain about was whether the returning jade slips would be of any use in such a secret place. If they worked, it would be fine. But if they didn't, they would have to face the ambush of the natives. Without enough people, they wouldn't be able to fight them. Therefore, Neza's clone and Bai Ranran directly asked Ntufu how much he wanted. Ntufu said that he didn't care about the world origin land, but in fact, how could he not care? This wasn't the land of revival but the half-beginning land. There would definitely be a lot of benefits. Therefore, Ntufu said calmly, energy crystals, 100 million per family. Ultra-quality spirit stones, 10 billion per family. Earth vein spring water, 50,000 liters per family. Origin of life, 100 per family. World origin crystals, 30 per family in the Pioneer Sea state. Immediately, the city of wanderers and the city of scavengers were in an uproar. Bai Ranran said, Are you sure that there are so many resources down there? Long Yu said, So, as long as you send one person, you will be the biggest winner? Ntufu laughed. I can take a step back. I can give up the world origin crystals, but I can't give up anything else. Otherwise, I'll go back and you can keep wasting my time here. Anyway, I'm not embarrassed. Then, you can ask the Emperor to break into this place. Neza said, Half, or it won't be worth it. Bai Ranran said, I agree. Ntufu, it's up to you whether you want the free resources or not. For me, this is just a mission. Ntufu said, 80%, no less, or I'll suffer a loss. Neza said, 60%, one more, and the city of wanderers will leave. The three parties haggled for a while and finally agreed on 60% of the resources that Ntufu needed. Ntufu said, The primitive city will send 30 people. You know how powerful the god's arrival technique is. I'll send another disciple of the infamily. Similarly, you need to send some people who are worthy. Bai Ranran said, Ghostblade, you go. Ghostblade nodded. Okay. Neza's clone looked at Long Yu. Long Yu, Li Canli, you two go together. Long Yu said, No problem. Li Canli said, Okay. Chapter 22-23. Long Yu and Li Canli had no psychological burden at all. Originally, they had thought that Neza had already formed an alliance with these natives, so it was impossible for them to hurt their own people. However, the people from Primordial City and Scavenger City were definitely going to be cheated. Moreover, this time, it wasn't just 1 or 2 people who had been cheated. Primordial City had sent 30 people, while Scavenger City had to send at least 40 people. In addition to the various ambushes from before, it could be said that Primordial City and Scavenger City's underpants were going to be cheated out of this trip to Land of Revival number 3. Because of Nez's clone and by Ranran's agreement, Antufu ordered, Anjia, pick 30 people and lead the team in. If we encounter an ambush, it will be too heavy a loss. You can go all out. A man from the family walked out and accepted the task. Of course, he knew what Antufu meant by go all out. Among the experts of the family, who did not have a trump card, even if they encountered a heaven-opening expert, they would still be able to fight. Moreover, this time, the 3 families added up to more than 100 peak sea-opening experts. As for Antufu and the others, as leaders, they naturally would not take the risk. Moreover, most of them were still outside. If something went wrong outside, the losses would be even more severe than in the abyss of death. A moment later, Long Yu, Anjia, and Ghost Blade each led a group of experts and rushed into the abyss of death. Long Yu even secretly said to Li Canli, later, act according to the situation. Don't show any flaws before you have absolute confidence to take them down. On the other side, Anjia of Primordial City also secretly said to the experts of Primordial City, later, if there is really an ambush, let Vagrant City and Scavenger City take the lead. Our target is the world's origin. In fact, a trace of a cold luster also appeared in Ghost Blade's eyes, and he also had unknown thoughts in his heart. However, when the 3 groups of people charged into the savage ancient land majestically, they were momentarily lost. Someone shouted, "There is such a strong evil aura here. Where are those natives?" Someone's expression changed drastically. Not good, the perception released here is more than 10 times weaker than the outside world. Someone said in horror, there seems to be no way to enter the origin sea from here. Long Yu and the rest were also surprised. This place is so strange in my perception, there is not even a single living thing. Everything is giving off an ancient aura. I don't feel right. Where are our native allies? Just as everyone was about to send a few people out to search, the ground suddenly started to tremble. Then, they saw the skeletons that were scattered all over the place began to gather together. Buzz, when the gigantic tormented souls appeared in their field of vision, everyone began to panic. Not good, it's a heaven-opening undying life form. Oh no, they're all heaven creation stage skeletal creatures. Where are we? Hurry up and find a way out of this place. Roar, however, before everyone could fly for more than 10 million miles, they realized that dozens of tormented souls had already surrounded them. They were all heaven-opening stage beings. Even though their battle prowess was not very strong, they were still at the heaven-opening stage. Han Fei could kill hundreds of them, but ordinary Pioneer Sea-State experts couldn't even deal with one. Even Long Yu panicked. Many people frantically asked Long Yu telepathically, "Long Yu, have we been tricked? Long Yu, is this aboriginal trying to kill us as well? Sister Yu, what should we do now? These are all heaven-opening stage monsters. Can they still be considered allies?" Long Yu's face changed drastically. "Get ready to fight the enemy." Swish, swish, swish. At that moment, the people of the primitive city ran the fastest. However, he could only hear continuous explosions coming from afar. Everyone saw that the experts of the primitive city, who had escaped first, were all blown up at this moment. With the horizontal attack of the fishtail, the primitive city expert who cast the god's arrival couldn't even resist it and was directly whipped to death. His soul was instantly eroded by the evil spirit and torn apart by the tormented souls. There was no chance of survival at all. On the side of the scavenger city, Ghost Blade shouted, "Crush the jade slip and withdraw from this exploration." In fact, when everyone saw the tragic situation on the primitive city's side, many people began to crush the jade slips one after another. However, what happened next horrified them. They heard everyone say in horror, "Oh no, the teleportation jade slip has lost its effect. We have no way out." At this moment, everyone was shocked. Most people took out their life-saving teleportation jade slips and began to crush them. It was precisely because of these life-saving teleportation jade slips that they dared to follow the team into this strange abyss. But now it seemed that they were clearly going to die. At this moment, Unjie, a disciple of the An family, shouted, "All of you, use the God's arrival technique. These are tormented souls. Legend has it that they only appear in ancient and decaying primordial land. Once these tormented souls appear, they will outnumber us. While the tormented souls haven't surrounded us, all of you, follow me." Cicada, Unjie flapped his heavenly cicada wings and turned into a ray of light, trying to escape. But suddenly, a blood-colored blade instantly cut through the ray of light. With a poochie sound, Unjie's body directly exploded. The next moment, a phantom of the heaven-opening realm appeared where the An family was. This phantom wrapped around Unjie's body, allowing the latter to quickly recover. Just as the phantom was about to attack, another blood-colored blade cut through the sky. The phantom shouted angrily, "How dare you! Poochie!" Bang, in everyone's eyes, the guardian phantom of the heaven-opening realm did not even have the strength to resist and was killed on the spot. And Unjie's body, which had just recovered, was grabbed by a large blood-colored hand. The large hand gently clenched, and everyone was horrified to find that the Unjie disciple leading the team from Primitive City had been directly crushed. "Run!" At this time, everyone realized how terrifying this place was and began to run in panic. However, the surrounding tormented souls had already surrounded them. A group of heaven-opening realm cultivators slaughtering a group of pioneer sea realm cultivators was like a game to them. Bang, 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 sounds of explosions rang out incessantly. One after another, pioneer sea realm experts died on the spot. Long Yu and the others were gathered in a circle when they heard Long Yu say, "It's useless to run now. Moreover, these skeletal creatures did not attack us. They should be allies." The group of people rolled their eyes. Why didn't we know that Boss Neza could make such powerful allies? Just how many heaven-opening stage allies did he have? They thought that if the three major forces had known that there was such a place in Land of Revival number 3, not to mention a group of pioneer sea realm experts like them, even heaven-opening realm experts would not be afraid. Only venerable sovereigns would be able to deal with them. At this moment, in Scavenger City and Primitive City, countless experts were fleeing for their lives and being slaughtered. Suddenly, they saw two figures walking over from afar. One of them seemed to be only in the Pioneer Sea realm, but he was wearing a mask, so it was impossible to see his appearance. The person beside him was surging with murderous aura. His murderous aura was like blood, and it was obvious that he was not someone to be trifled with. Wherever the two of them passed, the experts from Primordial City and Scavenger City were killed by the fiendish spirit hammers. However, many people also noticed something different. There were no tormented souls attacking the Vagabond City's team. In just a short time, more than half of the people from Scavenger City and Primitive City had died. However, the people from Vagabond City were still standing where they were, and no tormented souls attacked them. At this moment, many people were fleeing toward Long Yu and the others. However, along the way, a row of heaven-opening stage tormented souls blocked their path. Anyone who dared to approach them would be killed without mercy. At this time, if they still did not know the reason, they would be stupid. A person from Primitive City shouted, "It's the Vagabond City's scheme. They have allied with the natives." A person from Scavenger City roared, "Long Yu, you have allied with the natives to kill us. Once this matter is leaked, we will be besieged by Scavenger City and Primitive City." Someone said angrily, by Ran and the others will definitely find out. You will not have a good ending." However, these people could only shout. After a few words, they were killed and devoured by a group of heaven-opening realm tormented souls. They were like ants, and they did not even have a chance to resist. Gulp, gulp, Long Yu and the others swallowed their saliva. They were shocked. Was the sea-opening realm really a powerhouse? It seemed that in this world, there was always a group of terrifying existences, and the sea-opening realm was like an ant to them. Among this group of people, the only one who was a little different might be Ghostblade. Even though he was ranked in the top 10 of the law enforcement camp, he was still useless in the face of a large group of heaven-opening realm-tormented souls. Han Fei's strength was at the level of the top 10 lords, but he could only kill hundreds of tormented souls. If it were Han Fei who had just entered the heaven-opening realm, it would be extremely difficult for him to kill a dozen. If it was the Spirit Blade, he would not be able to split open the sky. Under such circumstances, he could not even kill a single tormented soul. Bam! This was already the 5th time the Ghost Blade had been smashed. It molted again and again, and was slapped to death again and again. Whether he tried to tear the void or burn his blood to escape, it was useless. The area seemed to have been sealed. The masked expert looked at Ghost Blade as if he was watching a clown, watching him struggle. Bam! 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 The 6th time, the 7th time. Seeing that he was about to be killed for the 9th time, Ghost Blade changed his momentum and charged at Han Fei. He didn't know who he was facing, but he knew he couldn't escape. Instead of struggling, he wanted to use the last trace of his strength to see who was controlling all this behind the scenes. Swish, seeing Ghost Blade coming at him. Han Fei didn't stop him, and the tormented souls along the way also stopped attacking. At this moment, except for Long Yu and the others, almost all the people present were dead, and only Ghost Blade was left. Seeing Ghost Blade charging at Han Fei, Long Yu and the others thought he was courting death. Clang! Ghost Blade's double knives stopped 3 inches in front of Han Fei, unable to move forward. At the last moment Ghost Blade growled, "Who are you?" A murderous aura wrapped Ghost Blade, and at the last moment, Ghost Blade saw the man take off his mask in front of him. However, when he saw the man's face, his eyes widened. Han Fei shrugged gently. "Don't look at me so surprised. You are not bad. You should be a good puppet." Chapter 22-24. Although Han Fei could turn all the people from the Primordial City and the Scavenger City into puppets of the living dead, however, it was unnecessary. Once the puppets of the living dead were discovered, the two forces would definitely pay special attention to them. Maybe they would investigate all the strong masters under their jurisdiction. Furthermore, Sea Expansion Realm experts were useless when it came to toppling Scavenger City. He had never expected that he would be able to destroy Scavenger City with just a few Sea Expansion and Heaven Opening experts. The reason why he kept this Ghost Blade alive was that he was indeed not weak, but mainly because he had a lot of lives. If Han Fei's guess was right, this guy could shed his shell 9 times. It was not bad to have such a character as a follower. When the murderous mist dissipated, Ghost Blade was nowhere to be seen. Only at this moment did Long Yu and the others realize how strong the native who cooperated with Neza was. They also felt lucky that they didn't kill the creatures in the number 3 revival land. Otherwise, wouldn't they end up the same as the people from the Scavenger City and the Primordial City? Han Fei walked up to Long Yu and the others casually. Long Yu and the others were also a little guilty. Long Yu said respectfully, "Long Yu greets you, senior." "Okay." Han Fei nodded and then said, "From now on, you are already dead. You won't appear again for a long time to come. Relax for a while and enter my origin sea. I will take you to the Wanderer City." Long Yu and the others' hearts skipped a beat, as if something was wrong. Was this person really a native of the number 3 revival land? It didn't seem so, because from his tone, he seemed to know the outside world very well. But no matter what Long Yu and the others thought, they completely believed Han Fei's words. He could crush them with one hand. Why would he lie to them? When Long Yu and the others were all taken into the Origin Sea by Han Fei, he looked at the tormented army and smiled. He murmured, "It's time to change the protagonist of this hunt." Outside the abyss of death, Neza, Bai Ranran and Entufu were all waiting. At the same time, they were also paying attention to the life tablets of those who entered the abyss of death. However, at the moment when these people entered the abyss of death, Entufu suddenly said, "Neza, now it's time for us to take action, right?" Bai Ranran suddenly frowned, and a bad premonition rose in her heart. Just now, he had sent 40 people to the death abyss. Currently, there were only 30 Sea Expansion Realm experts left. The Wanderer City's side was about the same, with only 2 or 3 more people than the Wanderer City's side. As for Primordial City, they had only sent 30 people into the abyss of death, so there were currently 42 people left. Although there were still people from the various powers who had yet to appear, they knew that it was impossible for all of them to gather in one place in such a large world. Therefore, if the 3 sides remained hostile, then his side would be safe. Otherwise, in fact, Bai Ranran had never thought that Neza would cooperate with Entufu. The hatred between the Wanderer City and Primitive City seemed to be greater than the hatred between the Wanderer City and the Scavenger City. In the past, Wanderer City and Primordial City had fought more than once. It was said that the Silent Master had been seriously injured. One could imagine how desperate the battle was. Therefore, Bai Ranran felt that even if Neza wanted to cooperate with someone, he should cooperate with her to attack Entufu. But now, Entufu's words made Bai Ranran's heart skip a beat. She felt that the situation was not good. Neza waved his hand and said, "Surround them." In fact, on the Wanderer City's side, everyone was also quite confused. What the hell was going on? Why did Boss Neza join hands with Entufu? But even though everyone knew about this, they did not feel that there was anything wrong with it at all. Because from the beginning, when they were asked to trap and kill their opponents with the Indigenous Alliance, they knew that their mission was more important than exploring the third land of revival, which was to trap and kill the experts of the other 2 forces. Now, after a year of fighting, many experts from the Scavenger City and the Primitive City had fallen in their hand. And Long Yu entering the abyss of death was also a trap. Now, Neza and Entufu had joined hands to kill all the experts from the Scavenger City. Just thinking about it was exciting. If they could make these 2 forces lose more than half of their experts, it would be a great contribution. Neza's clone took action without hesitation and stopped Bai Ranran. He said, "Entufu, Bai Ranran has been stopped. If you can't kill the others, there will be no chance for us to cooperate in the future." Entufu laughed aloud. "Ha ha ha. I'll show you how to kill them. Extreme Soul Hunting Array." Swish, swish, swish. 3 experts of the infamily, including Entufu, spread their heavenly cicada wings at the same time, and a triangular divine mark appeared between their eyebrows. In an instant, their strength soared and was comparable to Sky Splitter. Bai Ranran's eyes were cold. "Get out of the way." However, Neza's clone immediately showed his 3 heads and 6 arms and said indifferently, "If you want to save them, you must defeat me first." Bai Ranran snorted coldly. "Do you really think I can't kill you?" Neza's clone said, "Try me." With a flash between Bai Ranran's eyebrows, 6 wings appeared on his back, and a blue long knife appeared in his hand. In addition, Bai Ranran seemed to have used some kind of secret technique. The scales on his body began to glow. Han Fei could feel that Bai Ranran's strength was increasing crazily. Clang, the knife was like a bolt of lightning, and the mark was like a white dragon. The knife entered the way of heaven. This attack was comparable to the combat power of a Sky Splitter. However, a light curtain appeared around Han Fei, and the 9 dragons' divine fire shield had already protected him. 9 fire dragons rushed at Bai Ranran, and the latter made more than 100 hand seals in the blink of an eye. The sky was full of moans, and the 9 fire dragons were directly slapped out. The remaining divine seals were intended to trap Han Fei in the 9 dragons' divine fire shield. However, Nez's clone sneered, stepped out of the 9 dragons' divine fire shield, and the yin and yang swords in his hands opened their respective gates. The sword intent rose to the sky, and the sword slashed 100 hand seals, forcing Bai Ranran to retreat. Bai Ranran's eyebrows trembled, and a white dragon phantom ignored the sword chi and directly attacked Nez's clone. The latter said indifferently, "Show me your trump card. If you don't, you won't have a chance to attack." Bai Ranran gritted her teeth. The number of experts that had fallen in Scavenger City was already high enough. If this batch of experts were to be killed as well, then her family's foundation would be completely wiped out. Therefore, Bai Ranran didn't have time to hide anymore. With a dragon roar, a white dragon appeared. When the white dragon merged with Bai Ranran, he seemed to be wearing a layer of white armor. A second companion spirit? Han Fei couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He didn't expect that Bai Ranran had a second companion spirit. No wonder he could become the strongest in the law enforcement camp. In an instant, Bai Ranran's speed reached the peak. Han Fei blocked it with the red sky silk, but he was knocked back 1,000 miles. While flying back, Nez's clone shook his hand, and the instant mystic spear and the fire-tipped spear collided with Bai Ranran's fist seal again. Nez's clone retreated another 100 miles. Holding the fire-tipped spear, he spun like a top and attacked with all his strength. Rumble, this time, Bai Ranran didn't repel Nez's clone, but she retreated dozens of miles herself. Nez's clone grinned, and the 9-tailed mantis shrimp jumped out and locked the air for thousands of miles. Within 10,000 miles, his soul power couldn't be used, so he could only fight in close combat. This was the 9-tailed mantis shrimp's inherited sea expansion realm technique, soul locking restriction. Neza said indifferently, "Number 1 of the law enforcement camp, Bai Ranran, is that all you've got?" With a dragon roar, the 2 figures collided in the air, sending out dazzling light all over the sky. During this period, on other battlefields, Untufu laughed wildly. Bai Ranran, you be *tsh, how dare you kill my people? You from the primitive city, kill her! Neza, stop her a little longer. Tianhong, you can't even catch up with me. What can you do to me? Untufu laughed wildly. The number of sea expansion realm cultivators who died in his hands had reached 8. Under the joint attack of the primitive city and the wanderers, except for 7 or 8 people who were protected by Tianhong, the others were all dragged into the independent battlefields. This also meant that those who were dragged into the independent battlefields would die if they didn't leave the battlefield. Boom, boom, boom in the sky, lightning marks appeared one after another. In a short while, 16 people had died, including 8 killed by Untufu alone. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last long. Untufu, who was laughing loudly, stopped abruptly. Damn it! Neza's heart skipped a beat. In the abyss of death, a large number of people should have died. Neza's clone retreated quickly and pretended to take out several jade slip. Kacha, sounds of shattering could be heard. Moreover, it was the sound of shattering one after another. However, this didn't affect the hunting battle. Although Han Fei's face changed drastically, he still rushed to Bai Ranran immediately. Bai Ranran naturally also noticed that many people who entered the abyss of death showed signs of dying. Untufu, on the other hand, was getting angrier and angrier. He tried to vent his anger at the death of his men on the Scavenger City. Another 50 breaths of time had passed. Bai Ranran suddenly shouted, "Stop! Those who went down are all dead. What's the point of hunting in the Scavenger City? The point is that I don't like you." Bai Ranran's heart sank. Neza and Untufu were both lunatic. Bai Ranran shouted, "Everyone, withdraw." Unfortunately, even though they used teleportation jade slips to withdraw from the exploration of the number 3 revival land, some acquaintances still failed to catch up. In other words, the teleportation process was interrupted and they couldn't leave. At this point, Wanderer City had achieved a complete victory in this battle. But Han Fei looked indifferent. This achievement was not enough. Chapter 22-25. At the exit of Land of Revival Number 3. Qiu Shotsang and An Taiping's aura suddenly changed. Xingyu, who had been paying attention to them, copied them and changed his aura. He didn't know what had happened. So far, 6 people from the City of Wanderers had died. This number was unreasonable. Even if they had teleportation jade slips, they might not be able to use them in time when the battle was in a stalemate. Now, there were 17 people around him who had quit the exploration. They had all left to save their lives when they were in danger. The probability of them dying was much lower than what Xingyu had imagined. In fact, he also didn't know what Neza's main body had done. But anyway, Qiu Shotsang and An Taiping didn't look too good in the past 2 years. Therefore, Xingyu decided to keep his expression so that Qiu Shotsang and An Taiping wouldn't be able to see anything wrong with him. Xingyu didn't try to hide her ugly expression for about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. Suddenly, the air trembled. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. He saw sea expansion experts appear on Scavenger City's side. More than 20 people had quit the exploration at once. Xingyu even saw Tianhong among them. What's going on? Xingyu was dumbfounded. He could understand if others quit the exploration, but Tianhong had quit. That was a problem. He could be considered one of the strongest people who had entered Land of Revival Number 3. Something big must have happened to force Tianhong to quit the battle. Qiu Shotsang couldn't help but widen his eyes. Tianhong, why did you come out? Tianhong looked in the direction of the City of Wanderers and the City of Origin. He said in a deep voice, Neza and Ntufu worked together to kill us. Xingyu understood. Since he could kill his opponents, it didn't matter who he worked with. But what Xingyu didn't understand was why An Taiping looked so bad. Neza and Ntufu killed people from the City of Scavengers. Shouldn't you be happy? Qiu Shotsang said. What else? Why did almost 40 people die at once? Qiu Shotsang didn't hide it anymore. He would find out sooner or later. The reason why he wanted to say it now was because he wanted to hear Tianhong explain the unreasonableness of his death. He needed an excuse to enter. When Xingyu heard this, she felt that something was wrong. What the F***ck, 40 of them died at once. Why are there so many dead? Why didn't anyone die on my side? Tianhong said. The 3 factions hunted the natives and chased them to an abyss. It should be the source of the world. Every family has sent out a portion of their experts to explore deeper. I'm afraid they've met with misfortune now. Xingyu's expression immediately turned cold. He shouted before An Taiping could, Is there a seal in that place? Otherwise, why would so many people die if there are teleportation jade slips? Tianhong felt that the Wanderer City and Primordial City's casualties should be about the same. As a result, Tianhong said, There is no seal. A native heavenly genius brought over 50 peak sea expansion cultivators and fled there. If there was a seal, we would have sensed it long ago. In reality, Xingyu already knew where it was. Although he did not know how Neza's main body survived and how he could use the Great Desolation ancient land to lure a large number of experts from the 2 clans in and kill them. But from the looks of it, that guy seemed to have opened up that place. Otherwise, based on the tormented soul's bloodlust, how could they not attack the Wanderer City? But no matter what, it seemed that the Wanderer City was the final winner this time. Compared to the neighboring 2 clans that had lost dozens of people, their side had only lost a total of 6 people. If the 2 clans found out, they would definitely explode. Xingyu snorted coldly. Idiot, how can you put yourself in danger in such a dangerous place? Xingyu snorted. Although An Taiping knew part of the answer, Ntufu seemed to have done a good job this time, so he did not say anything. Because Qiu Shotsang said that 40 people had died, but their primordial city had only lost 30 people. It was probably the same for the Wanderer City. From the looks of it, Untufu was not bad. However, Chiao Shotsang could not take this blow. In the first 3 months, 46 people had died. Although it was better later, 40 people had died in a year. Now, another 40 people had died. Son of a bitch, a total of 201 people had entered, and now 126 were gone. In addition, there were many who had withdrawn from the exploration this time. There were less than 40 people left. He was afraid that if he did not act now, these 40 people would also be gone. Chiao Shotsang said, "Xing Yu and Taiping, that secret abyss has clearly exceeded the scope of this trial. I suggest that the 3 of us go and destroy that place together." Xing Yu said, "Even if we want to act, we have to wait until the 2 years are up. Otherwise, if there are any mistakes or if there are heaven-opening realm experts there. There are not many people in your clan. There are still some people in my Wanderer city who have not evacuated." And Taiping thought for a moment. In fact, 101 people had died in Primordial City. More than half had died, but the situation should be better than Scavenger City. Thus, and Taiping said, "I think we can call them back in advance. After all, that secret land has exceeded their ability. There is a high possibility that there are heaven-opening realm experts there. Otherwise, they would not have been able to kill so many people in a row. When the people return, we will act and sweep this place." Chiao Shotsang nodded slightly. "That works too. Xing Yu, what else do you think?" Xing Yu was thinking about how to continue the trial, but a memory suddenly appeared in his mind. While Xing Yu and the others were discussing how to call everyone back, Xing Yu's old body had already been fished over. "Find a way to end the trial in advance and call back 100 people. I will take the others out. By the way, find a way to lure and Taiping and Chiao Shotsang to an abyss here. Many people know the location." At the exit, Xing Yu nodded slightly. "I think there is no problem. We can call them back in advance. That place is indeed weird, and the trial is indeed not suitable to continue." Chiao Shotsang stared at Xing Yu. Although he felt that Xing Yu's answer seemed a little too simple. However, he thought that the 3 families sent people into the abyss together. The people in Scavenger City were gone, and the people in Wanderer City must be the same. Summoning everyone to leave was relatively simple. The teleportation jade slip had the ability to summon allies, which was also the main way for Bai Ranran and the others to summon allies. In addition to summoning allies, with the power of the heaven-opening state, they could attach their power to the jade slip and summon all the trial takers back. Buzz buzz buzz, after the message of the teleportation jade slip was sent out. In just half an hour, a large number of experts from each family returned. Oh no, to be precise, a large number of experts from the Wanderer City returned. In front of Xing Yu, a total of 83 people came back. Plus the 17 people who had already withdrawn, there were 100 people back. On the side of Scavenger City, a total of 34 people came back. Plus those who had withdrawn, there were a total of 69 people. A total of 70 people came back from Primitive City. Plus the 28 people who had withdrawn, there were a total of 98 people. And the major camps were obviously a little surprised. That was Neza, Bai Ranran, and Untufu. These leaders didn't come back. In fact, Neza's idea was that if they all went back now, his main body would also have to go back. He still needed to buy time for his main body. Therefore, when most of the other people retreated, Neza chased after Bai Ranran. He also called the crazy Untufu to help him. It was a 2-on-1 fight. Seeing that Neza's clone was determined, Untufu thought that there might be a chance to keep Bai Ranran here. As for the rest of the people from the Wanderer City, they had been taken into the Origin Sea as early as when Han Fei found Neza, in order to create the illusion that the Wanderer City had also suffered a great loss this time. Now, Chiao Shotsang and the others could probably guess that the reason why Bai Ranran and Neza didn't come back should be that they were fighting hard. After all, a moment ago, these parties were fighting fiercely. Neza and Ntufu joined forces to attack Bai Ranran. Now, they should be besieging Bai Ranran, so they had no time to come back. But Chiao Shotsang wasn't worried about Bai Ranran's safety, because Bai Ranran's real strength was comparable to that of Sky Opening. As the strongest person in the law enforcement camp, even Zhao Hongwang had given her a trump card. How could she be killed by two guys in the same realm? Chiao Shotsang said, "There's no time to lose. Now that everyone is back, let's take action." And Taiping said, "What's the hurry? Let's send them out first." This time, the loss was too great. Seeing that only 69 people from the scavenger city came back, it could be seen how great the loss was. So, if Scavenger City decided to do something, or if they flipped the table and started to attack Sea Expansion Realm cultivators, no one would be able to bear the consequences. In fact, Xing Yu didn't care. He thought to himself that since the Master of Silence attached so much importance to this trial, there must be people outside waiting to turn the table over at any time. How could he not know his own boss? Therefore, Xing Yu wasn't worried that something would happen to the people on his side at all. Half a day later, when people from the three major forces all arrived, Purple Cloud, who was in charge of the graveyard battlefield in the Scavenger City, said in surprise, "The trial ended early. Why are there so few people?" Chiao Shotsang said, "There's something wrong with the natives of the number 3 revival land. I can't explain it now. We'll talk about it when I come back." Chapter 22-26. The third land of revival was only half a starting ground. At first, no one thought that there would be any accident. Before the trial was opened, the three major forces had explored this world. Otherwise, they wouldn't have let so many people in. But now, it seemed that they had missed something. They had seen the abyss of death before, but they hadn't seen any heaven-opening realm cultivators. Therefore, they had taken it for granted that it was the place where the origin source of the world dissipated. They had never thought that there would be an ancient powerhouse that was still alive. Logically speaking, it was rare for such a situation to occur even in 10,000 primitive graves. After all, a world had become a wasteland and its origin source had been sucked dry. How could anyone still be alive? Buzz, 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 Xing Yu, Chiao Shotsang, and Taiping arrived at the cave. They didn't look for Bai Ranran and the others. Since they hadn't returned, it was only because they didn't want to. Otherwise, it wouldn't explain why none of the leaders had returned. At this moment, Xing Yu narrowed his eyes and said, "The danger down there might not be as simple as the heaven-opening realm if so many kings died in such a short period of time." And Taiping suddenly said, "Did you guys notice that the origin source of the world is no longer dissipating? This means that the origin source of the world has been taken." "What do you mean?" Chiao Shotsang's face turned cold. "You mean that this disaster was caused by someone?" Chiao Shotsang's heart skipped a beat. He had heard from Tian Hong that Ghostblade had led the team down. Now everyone else had died, but Ghostblade's life tablet was still intact. Could it be that Ghostblade had caused the disaster down there and obtained an unexpected resource? Devoured all the origin source of the world here? Chiao Shotsang's heart skipped a beat. It was possible. He knew Ghostblade's ability. The 9 Deaths' indestructible body could allow him to die 9 times in a row within a certain period of time without dying. If Ghostblade obtained all the origin source of the world, his potential and growth would probably be comparable to Bai Ranran's. Chiao Shotsang immediately said, "What? No matter how dangerous it is, can it stop the 3 of us? It's not an exaggeration to say that if the 3 of us join forces, we even have a chance of suppressing an expert at the edge of Tao proving. How can a mere awakening Dangerland stop us?" There was nothing wrong with what Chiao Shotsang said. At their level of strength, a single person could easily break through the starting ground. In a place like the chaotic vast sea, if it weren't for the fact that there was no beast king guarding it, who could resist a celestial transformation realm powerhouse? Duan Qing Si even dared to fight against a venerable emperor together with the Silent Master. It was not hard to imagine how terrifying their battle prowess would be at their level. Xingyu could kill more than 20 ordinary heaven-opening realm-tormented souls with a single strike. If it was Qiu Shotsang or Taiping, they would probably be able to do the same. However, Xingyu already knew what was at the bottom of the abyss. It was a group of tormented souls, and he had even been dragged into a fight. Even if the three of them were to attack together, it would be a little unrealistic for them to defeat so many tormented souls. They were strong, but they were still within the limits of the heaven-opening stage. It could only be said that even in the face of so many tormented souls, it would not be easy for them to die. Of course, if there were people below to support him, and he had some other means, he might really be able to kill Qiu Shotsang and Taiping. Thinking of this, Xingyu was a little excited. The strength of these two people was not weak at all. If they were really killed, there would only be benefits. At that time, whether it was the primitive city or the scavenger city, they could only admit defeat. Anyway, this recovery ground number 3 was explored by everyone together. However, Xingyu felt that the possibility of this was relatively small. After all, there were so many tormented souls down there. It was already good enough that they could fight their way out. Even with the help of Neza's unknown main body, it would at most be easier for them to escape. At this moment, Qiu Shotsang wanted them to enter this abyss together. Xingyu thought, since Han Fei asked me to lure them here, does he really have a way to take them down? But a few years ago, that guy seemed to be a little busy with his own affairs, right? While Xingyu was thinking, Taiping said, although the world source here has disappeared, after all, hundreds of our sea-opening realm seedlings were killed here. We can't let this matter go easily. I think we can go in. Xingyu nodded. Since you think we can go in, then go in. At this time, Xingyu was more like an onlooker. He felt that in this trap, he was safe. What he was interested in now was how to deal with Neza's mysterious main body. Swish, 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 the three of them jumped into this abyss one after another. As the saying goes, the strong are fearless. Anyway, Qiu Shotsang and the others felt that in such a recovery ground, how could there be a creature that could threaten them? However, when they entered the world below, when the billowing murderous aura instantly filled their nerves, when the scorching air made them feel that something was wrong, it was already too late. This is the primordial battlefield? And Taiping's eyes were awe-inspiring. Feeling the rich murderous aura here, he immediately shouted in a low voice, "Not good, we've been ambushed. This place is more dangerous than I thought." This kind of rich murderous aura is a place that nurtures evil spirits, and it is very easy for them to give birth to tormented souls. After all, the primitive city was the first main city in the chaotic wasteland. They knew more secrets here. Therefore, when Taiping first arrived at this place, he had already guessed the real problem here. Sure enough, in their perception, the tormented souls here began to gather. When the first heaven-splitting realm-tormented soul appeared, they knew why so many people had died one after another. After all, the trial-takers were only at the Pioneer Sea realm. Against a heaven-splitting realm-tormented soul, it would be a problem if they did not die. Xingyu pretended to be angry and shouted, "Qiu Shotsang, you King risked your life to come down here. Don't tell me you already knew the real situation here? Now that the cause of their deaths is obvious, if you want to stay here and fight the tormented souls, you can stay here." Xingyu mocked and looked like he was about to leave. However, more and more tormented souls appeared around them. Based on his perception, there were already dozens of them. At this rate, in a short while, this place would soon be filled with tormented souls. Qiu Shotsang's face darkened. "What do I know? Scavenger City has the most people who have died," Xingyu said. "So you want to drag us down with you? If you want to blame someone, blame the people of Scavenger City for being too greedy. If they weren't greedy, maybe the people of Wanderer City wouldn't have died." Qiu Shotsang yelled, "Xingyu, are you trying to pick a fight now?" Xingyu snorted. "What? Do you think I'm afraid of you? Why don't you take a look at yourself? If Panlitian came, he might be able to argue with me. You're just the second lord. Bastard! Stop arguing. Think about how to get out of here. There are more and more tormented souls here. They're all heaven-splitting realms. None of them are weak. Bang, bang, bang. As they spoke, they had already started fighting. There was no other way. At this time, they had no choice but to fight. When the tormented souls were everywhere, it would be difficult to fight. In an instant, the three powerhouses attacked one after another. The tormented souls that Han Fei found extremely difficult to deal with crumbled one after another in front of the three of them. They were not even qualified to resist. Half an hour later, when the three of them destroyed close to 500 tormented souls, they finally felt that it was difficult. They were powerhouses in the late stage of the star transformation realm, but they were also in the heaven-splitting realm and had their limit. There was no external force in this place, so they could only consume their own resource reserve. However, in Han Fei's case, although their combat power was still strong, their mental exhaustion could not be eliminated. Even though they had destroyed close to 500 tormented souls, there were still a large number of tormented souls chasing after them. Based on what they could see, there were still about 700 to 800 of them. Han Fei, who was sitting on the ancient blood fiend's neck, was also speechless. Was this the combat power of someone like Xingyu? They were simply animals. The three of them easily killed close to 500 tormented souls, and it seemed that they could continue fighting. Han Fei counted the number of tormented spirits he could still control. There were a total of 1,021 tormented spirits that he had accumulated over countless years. In such a short time, he had almost killed all of them. Who could withstand such an attack? Han Fei thought to himself, I can't go on like this. I can't let Xingyu help me anymore. Immediately, Han Fei had an idea. Launch an all-out attack. Han Fei jumped down from the ancient blood fiend's neck. At this time, he still had to kill Qiu Shotsong and Taiping. On the other side, Xingyu roared, Taiping, is this the right way you're leading? Where is the exit? Where the hell is the exit? Taiping roared, the origin of the world here has been collected. Even the infamily can't find it according to the traces left behind. At this time, you have no choice but to believe me. Qiu Shotsong was horrified. Oh no, thousands of tormented souls are surrounding us. Xingyu cursed heartily, Taiping, I don't believe you. You brought us into the nest of the tormented souls, didn't you? Xingyu felt very good. It was a rare opportunity to curse at them. However, thousands of tormented souls had come. Wasn't that a bit too much? Where was Neza's original body? At this moment, Xingyu suddenly heard Han Fei's voice transmission, Attention! Stay away from Taiping. The all-out attack has begun. Chapter 22-27. An all-out attack? Xingyu's heart skipped a beat when he heard this, feeling a little incredulous. Wait, didn't you drag me along to fight the tormented spirits? Now you're telling me to launch an all-out attack? Looking at the surrounding tormented souls, Xingyu was sure that this was the general attack that Han Fei had mentioned. Xingyu's heart skipped a beat, and he shouted to Qiu Shotsong and Taiping, Split up, or else the tormented spirits will be endless. What if none of us can escape? Qiu Shotsong's heart skipped a beat. The primordial city had done a lot of research on the primordial graveyard. If they gave up on Taiping and left on their own, what if none of them managed to escape? However, seeing that Xingyu had already rushed out in one direction, his heart skipped a beat. Could this be a trap set by the primordial city? After all, Taiping had been leading them for half a day, and they had killed countless tormented spirits along the way. Not only had they not found the exit, but the number of tormented spirits was also increasing. Qiu Shotsong immediately made up his mind and chose a path to rush out. When Xingyu and Qiu Shotsong both left, even Taiping himself was a little uncertain. Was he on the right path or the wrong one? Cicada. Under such circumstances, Taiping immediately spread his heavenly cicada wings, and the cicada's sound rang out. Through the sound, he could identify danger in the void. Taiping was determined. The more dangerous it was, the more likely it was a way out. In his opinion, Xing Yu and Qiu Shouzang's departure was not wise. He was thinking that if he ran away, then Xing Yu and Qiu Shouzang, who could not find the way out, would probably be trapped alive in this primordial land. Under the siege of so many tormented spirits, they would not be able to withstand it. And Taiping felt that he might have accidentally killed two super powerhouses. If that was the case, this trial in Land of Revival number 3 would be a huge win. Experts like Xing Yu and Qiu Shouzang were not people who could be nurtured just because they wanted to. To become a powerhouse of this level, which one of them did not have countless opportunities and wandered on the edge of life and death countless times. A starting ground might not even be able to produce one such powerhouse, but this time, two of them might die. This was a huge credit. Although there were countless tormented souls blocking the way, they were still tormented souls. In terms of speed, they could not be compared to an expert like Taiping. Taiping unleashed his ultimate skills one after another. After killing dozens of tormented souls in a row, he set off in the direction of a safe place that he had determined to be safe. However, although there were obstacles along the way, the tormented souls could only exhaust him. It was impossible for them to stop him. After Taiping killed close to 70 tormented souls, he felt that he was on the right path even though he felt that his spirit was lacking. Because he saw a crimson mist, which was an even denser baleful aura. Who? Two idiots. They gave up the chance to live for nothing. Taiping grinned. Just as he was about to move forward, he suddenly saw a monstrous baleful qi condensing into a saber river slashing in his direction. Who? Taiping was instantly horrified. This level of explosion, and such terrifying power, had almost triggered the baleful aura within 100,000 li radius. This kind of power could not have been caused by a single tormented soul. Roar. Divine Seal, Heaven Gate Formation. 8 layers of a strange formation appeared around Taiping. Behind him, the triangular divine seal was rotating slowly and its power was exploding. Clang, 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 the endless saber river of baleful aura swept over the strange formation and produced clanging sounds. Every time the sound was heard, the terrifying power was as if a heaven-opening realm expert was attacking. It was extremely terrifying. Crack, crack, crack. After 3 breaths, the first layer of the Heaven Gate formation began to break. Taiping's vision darkened and then lit up. This time, he had already killed too many heaven-opening stage living beings, and his current battle prowess was less than 50%. Under such circumstances, he had to defend against such an exaggerated attack. It was extremely exhausting. He was terrified because it did not feel like he was fighting against an expert of the same realm. It felt like he was fighting against a force that was the enemy of the entire world. The 100,000 li of baleful aura was being manipulated by a force. One could imagine how powerful it was. Bang, bang, bang. As time went by, although the power of the Saber River was constantly weakening, the boundless baleful aura had never diminished. Taiping took a deep breath. At the moment when the Heaven Gate formation was about to break, a circular sound wave came out of his mouth. The power of the sound wave was no less than that of the Saber River, if not even stronger. Seeing this, Han Fei, who was secretly peeping, was shocked. Was he going to be killed when the ancient human took action in person and waited for him to be exhausted? The sound wave broke through the evil blood Saber River, and Taiping broke out of the encirclement. At the same time, he shouted, "Who's playing tricks? Come out." Han Fei's heart turned cold, and he sneered. "Come out, I'm not afraid of you." On Taiping's route, a figure burning with baleful aura appeared. This ancient human's baleful aura was like blood, like a monster coming out of a blood pool. he roared. "In the past, it was you guys with wings who destroyed my world and slaughtered billions of my people. Today, I'm going to make you sink under the endless resentful souls." And Taiping was shocked. What the hell is this? Billions of people? Is this the strong master of the starting ground? No, this person has been integrated with the baleful aura and completely turned into a baleful body. His flesh and blood may be the manifestation of baleful aura. It's not necessarily a good thing to be entangled with this person. However, Taiping twisted the space, but the distorted space was immediately torn apart by the ancient human. Although he was just a puppet now, he was still a puppet on the verge of the Tao-proving realm. When such a strong master launched an attack, there was no chance for him to escape. As soon as the two met, a fierce battle broke out. Because he was a puppet without consciousness, he was inevitably weaker in the battle. However, this person was really strong. He was originally a figure on the verge of the Tao-proving realm, or even at the same level as Zhao Honghuang. Even if his strength was greatly reduced, there was no reason for him to suddenly fall to the point where he couldn't even defeat Taiping. Therefore, the two fought fiercely. Taiping tried to leave the battle many times, but he was blocked by the boundless baleful aura. In the battle, Han Fei could see that Taiping's state was getting worse and worse. First, he killed almost 300 tormented spirits in a row, and now he was attacked by this ancient human. It would be strange if he was in a good state of mind. But the next moment, Han Fei saw another kind of magical power. In the fierce battle, Taiping's eyebrows lit up. However, it was not that his spiritual beast was about to come out, but a milky white bead was appearing. Star bead. Han Fei frowned. Hasn't Taiping been forced to use star beads? At that moment, a beam of terrifying energy that even Han Fei found incredible instantly penetrated the void within 100,000 kilometers. Even the ancient humans were pierced through 100,000 miles by this power, leaving a huge hole in their chests. But Taiping didn't seem to be in a good state either. This was the power directly burst out through the star bead, a kind of release of the power in the source sea. Han Fei thought that even if he could block the release of this power, he would almost be crippled. He felt that even if he turned back time, he might not be able to make it in time. Taiping was bleeding from his eyes, nose, mouth, panting heavily, and the triangular divine seal behind him rotated a lot faster. Han Fei snorted in his heart. No matter how strong you are, so what? This is the home field of the tormented spirit. Even if I have to kill you, I'll kill you today. However, the ancient human charged back again. All the baleful aura in the surrounding void was healing his injuries. Seeing this, Taiping was unwilling to fight back. While the ancient human hadn't returned, he immediately twisted the void and tried to escape. Han Fei wanted to intercept him, but he hadn't mastered this weird power of twisting the void yet. This was a kind of speed beyond the speed of light. Just when Han Fei was speechless, wondering if he would let Taiping escape, he saw the twisted void suddenly collapse. Taking a closer look, it was Star Plume that rushed out of the twisted void. Han Fei saw a big star emerge, almost covering Taiping. The terrifying power seemed to be even stronger than the beam of light that Taiping burst out just now. Puff! Crack, crack, crack! Caught off guard, most of Taiping's body exploded, and the raging energy pierced through him countless times. Even so, Taiping was able to react. Although his hands were almost turned into bones, he managed to block this blow. Star Plume? How dare you sneak attack me at this time? Don't you want to go out? Hiss, you set me up? Star Plume attacked, and the ancient human swept up a long river of evil energy again and rushed over. When Taiping saw that the two of them didn't attack each other, he seemed to understand something. Cicada! Immediately, Taiping wanted to run back. As long as he could find Qiushotsang, he could survive. As the saying went, if the lips were gone, the teeth would be cold. Qiushotsang wouldn't just sit by and watch. Unfortunately, how could he survive a long river of evil energy and a spear made of flying stars? Immediately, the triangular divine seal behind and Taiping burst out, and a terrifying power descended. That was the power of an emperor. Rumble, rumble, and Taiping managed to cast the god's arrival technique and borrowed some of the power of an emperor. Blood spurted out crazily, but his broken body and injuries were recovering quickly. However, the moment he was hit away, he saw a horrible sword shadow suddenly burst out from behind him. However, Taiping quickly sensed that the power of this sword didn't seem to be that strong, so he held it with his hand. When Taiping was about to crush the Tao Convergence sword, the space here suddenly exploded, and the power reached the center of his eyebrows. At that moment, the void in front of Taiping's eyebrows moved, and a trace of the entrance to the Origin Sea appeared. A figure flashed and instantly rushed in. Even Star Plume was stunned by this scene. A voice transmission sounded in his mind, "Don't do anything. Leave this person to me." Chapter 22-28. In this primordial desolate land, Han Fei had already tried to enter the Origin Sea. The entrance to the Origin Sea seemed to be suppressed by the power of this world. However, this didn't mean that he really couldn't enter the Origin Sea. And Taiping revealed his star bead, which was his biggest loophole. It would be fine if he didn't know that the star bead was connected to the Origin Sea, but Mo Chi told him this personally, so he didn't think it was fake. Sure enough, although there was only a gap, it was enough for him to kill his way in. Xing Yu's eyes almost popped out at this moment. "This is Neza's King body. Why did you run to Taiping's Origin Sea? Do you want to die?" However, Xing Yu looked at the motionless bloody figure standing in the void next to him and couldn't help but be shocked. How did he control such a powerful bloody figure? Besides, so many bloody spirits seemed to be attacking him consciously. Are they also under his control? Xing Yu couldn't help but sigh. Why has no one ever told me that Neza has a body? Does the Lord of Silence know? The answer is that he definitely knows. Otherwise, Neza's body wouldn't have been exposed. Xing Yu also felt that this person must be on his side. Although his body hadn't turned into a star yet, there was no doubt that this person could definitely become the 5th general of the City of Wanderers. This news made Xing Yu quite excited. However, he really couldn't imagine how he could come out of Taiping's Origin Sea alive. No matter how weak he was still a powerhouse who had gone a long way after turning into a star. He was comparable to the 4 generals and the 10 lords. In Taiping's Origin Sea, the moment Han Fei rushed in, Taiping was dumbfounded. "Bastard, how dare you enter my Origin Sea? Do you want to die?" Taiping's first reaction was to use the power of the Origin Sea to kill Han Fei. He didn't waste his energy on Han Fei. He thought that there were still 2 strong enemies outside, and he had to escape. However, when the terrifying power surged towards Han Fei, 3 small branches suddenly protruded from between Han Fei's eyebrows. Taiping was shocked to find that his terrifying power couldn't cause any harm to this person at all. Furthermore, all of the immortal Qi and primal chaos Qi in his source sea were gathering toward him. He was unable to control them at all. "Who are you?" Han Fei grinned. "Me? I am this guy, the shiniest one." Taiping was speechless. "What do you mean by the brightest? You're even singing?" Taiping was enraged. "Even if I can't kill you, how can you survive my self-destruction?" Han Fei loosened his shoulders and spread his hands. "Go ahead. In the past, you could have exploded a little, but now..." At this time, another 2 vines extended from between his eyebrows. Except for the one with fruits, the other 5 vines all came out. For a moment, Taiping felt that he was controlled by an invisible force. He wanted to activate the Origin Sea, but he found that there was no longer any power that would listen to him. Han Fei sneered. In the past, it was because he was weak that others could detonate the Source Sea under the absolute suppression of his strength. Now, He had already opened the heavens, and the little vine now had 6. From the moment he entered, the power of the origin sea belonged to the little vine, and yet he still wanted to self-detonate? What the hell was he thinking? Of course, it was not that Taiping couldn't self-detonate, but he could only detonate his body, and the origin sea would become an ownerless object. This was the first time that Han Fei had seen the origin sea of a celestial expert. At first glance, this was a F*King complete planet. Han Fei looked up at the sea of stars, and what was visible to the naked eye was that there were several large planets surrounding the sea. Han Fei could understand that this was to create a small galaxy, such as a solar system. It was a pity that although Taiping's small galaxy had several large planets around it, it lacked a star like the Sun. After seeing the process of turning into a star and the evolution of the origin sea from the ancient humans, Han Fei was not so surprised by this. However, there were so many resources in Taiping's origin sea. Han Fei glanced around. If he collected these resources, even if most of them were useless, he could still develop at least 50,000 kilometers of origin sea, or even more. This was incomparable to the resources he exchanged for with more than 1 billion resources in the scavenger city. If he had to measure it in terms of resources, Han Fei could only say that there were at least tens of billions of energy crystals, and this was only a part of the resources that Han Fei could collect. Han Fei wanted to swallow Taiping's entire origin sea. He had tried this kind of thing long ago, but it didn't work. He could only swallow the resources that flowed on the surface of Taiping's origin sea. As for the deeper resources, even if he could excavate them, it would take a long time. Unfortunately, he didn't have the time to excavate resources now. There was still a big battle waiting for him outside, and Qiu Shotsang hadn't been killed yet. Outside. Hearing Han Fei's words, Xingyu didn't make a move and left Taiping to Han Fei. In fact, at first, Taiping still wanted to escape and was still conscious, but later, almost all his power was silent, and he seemed to be resisting something. He couldn't control Xingyu at all. But in any case, Xingyu knew that Taiping was dead. His power was getting weaker and weaker. Even if Han Fei didn't make a move, Xingyu was confident that he could kill Taiping. In the past, only one small vine attacked, but today 5 small vines attacked together. About half an hour later, Taiping couldn't hold on anymore. Taiping's whole body twisted, which was a sign of self-destruction. The self-destruction of a late-stage star transformation cultivator was so powerful that Xingyu, the ancients, and the human beings all retreated at the same time. Rumble, a self-destruction that swept across hundreds of thousands of kilometers, stirred the void here and even caused a violent earthquake in the surface world. Because it was not the great Tao of this world, Taiping's death didn't cause the great Tao to roar and other astronomical changes. However, at the moment Taiping died, the 2 emperors of the An family suddenly opened their eyes. And Balan suddenly got up from the throne, his expression solemn. Something big happened in the graveyard battlefield. Amidst the explosion, a figure seemed to walk out of the flames. The light from the flames made him shine with a golden light, making him look like a god. Xingyu's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he heard Han Fei say, "Done. As for Qiu Shotsang, I want to lead him to the outside world to kill him." Xingyu's eyelids twitched. If he goes to the outside world, will he still have a chance to kill him? Han Fei grinned. First, cripple him and then throw him to the outside world. This is the place where the world recovers, and it will eventually recover in the future. Xingyu shrugged. Why don't I know that Neza is an incarnation? Who are you? Han Fei said, You can ask the Lord of Silence or Duan Qingxi who I am. In short, we are not enemies. We are firm allies. Xingyu asked, Firm allies? A force outside the wasteland? Han Fei said, Don't guess. You'll know when you go back. Here, Taiping had died. It was impossible for there to be no movement in the primordial city. Although Han Fei could temporarily command these tormented souls because of this ancient human, the tormented souls were not as powerful as before. However, in addition to the number 3 land of recovery, the evil spirits were not of much use. After all, such a big thing had happened, it was impossible for the emperors not to come. People like Taiping were equivalent to the 4 generals of the City of Wanderers, or the top 5 of the 10 lords of the City of Scavengers. There were only a few heavyweights like him in the entire chaotic wasteland. How could he not be taken seriously? When the emperors came, there would be less than 1,000 evil spirits left, which would not be enough. At this moment, all the evil spirits were chasing after Qiu Shotsang. Like in Taiping, although Qiu Shotsang had killed many evil spirits, there was a limit to his strength. Even if Qiu Shotsang's origin sea was abundant in resources, he was under great mental pressure. Although in Taiping and Qiu Shotsang were both stronger than Han Fei could reverse time. And with the help of the Emperor's Sparrow, he could fish up Xing Yu to fight together. Overall, in terms of the number of kills, Han Fei might be able to kill more. But in a fight, if he used too many combat skills and soul power, his mental power would inevitably be exhausted. At this moment, Qiu Shotsang sensed the outbreak of a super battle, so he was coming to Han Fei. However, when Qiu Shotsang saw the ancients, he was shocked. Xing Yu did not show up. Han Fei hoped that he would catch the opponent off guard like before. Including Han Fei himself, he also hid. Anyway, he didn't have to do it himself. There were still many evil spirits anyway. Even if most of them had been killed, there were still 713 evil spirits left. In other words, since they parted ways just now, Taiping and Qiu Shotsang had killed more than 300 evil spirit. At this moment, the ancients appeared and a great battle broke out. Qiu Shotsang had nowhere to run and was completely stalled by the ancients. And this time, Han Fei was not in a hurry to make a move. Because he could not accurately seize the opportunity to enter the opponent's origin sea through their star beads every time. Therefore, he had to cripple Qiu Shotsang and give him one last chance to escape. Therefore, all the remaining evil spirits joined the battle, more than 700 evil spirits and ancients. No matter how furious Qiu Shotsang was, even if he was hundreds of millions of miles away, they would not give him a chance to escape. In the dark, Han Fei and Xing Yu were watching the battle. Han Fei sighed and said, "People of your level are really good at fighting. I'm almost exhausted, but you still managed to kill 70 or 80 evil spirit. You're really fierce." Xing Yu was speechless. "You really don't mean to flatter yourself? People of our level are fierce, but you're not?" Xing Yu nodded. "It should be about time. Don't panic. Let's push him a little more. It won't be too late to burn tens of thousands of years of his lifespan." Before this, Qiu Shotsang had already burned 50,000 to 60,000 years of his lifespan, which made Han Fei quite sigh. After a while, Qiu Shotsang was knocked away by the Blood Fiend. He immediately burned his lifespan again and attacked with the power of the Star Bead, knocking away the Blood Fiend's body and killing 17 evil spirit. At this time, Xing Yu said, "It's about time. I know you still want to enter his origin sea. If we wait any longer, when the venerable emperor of the Yin family arrives, it will be difficult to continue the show." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Okay.